AutoCAD 2018. So you really should have taken the AutoCAD 2018 Essentials course on the website first before doing this course. It's sort of a prerequisite, really. And the idea being is we're then going to review all of the aspects of AutoCAD that you need to obviously prepare for your certification examination. So that's really what you should know. Now, the other thing that you should know as well, obviously I've mentioned it already, is that we are using AutoCAD 2018 for the videos in this particular preparation course. Now, don't worry about the exercise files. They will be saved back to a previous version, which will be the 2013 DWG format, to make sure that older versions of AutoCAD can read the files. But what you should know is you should know your AutoCAD Essentials, which you've done by doing the AutoCAD Essentials course. And then also as well, you should have been using AutoCAD Live in a work environment, in a business environment, so that you know how to drive AutoCAD effectively in your workplace. That way, you've got the live AutoCAD expertise and you've also got the academic AutoCAD expertise from the videos that obviously you've been using to learn from on the website. As we work through the videos in this particular course, I'll prompt you to use specific exercise files. Now, those exercise files are in the usual AutoCAD DWG file format. So if you look at the drawing you've got on the screen in front of you right now, you can see that it's called introduction.dwg file. Now, you can go to the website, you can download that as an exercise file and use it to follow along with this particular video if you wish. Now, that particular DWG file will be saved back in a 2013 DWG file format. That means that every version of AutoCAD from 2013 upwards can read the DWG, because your certification is not normally now version specific. So you should be able to work on a slightly older version of AutoCAD and still be able to approach, prepare, and take your certification examination. So the idea being is the drawing files are there for you to download from the website. Download them, store them in a known location on your computer. I'll then refer to the appropriate DWG file, the appropriate exercise file for each particular video as we work through the course. So what is Autodesk certification? Well, you can see that I've got a web page open at the moment, and it's the training and certification web page on the autodesk.com website. You can also see the link there at the top of the screen, and as you can see, it's right there, training and certification. Now, you'll notice in this certification tab, you'll notice there on the Autodesk website, it tells you all about certification. So if I just roll down the web page a little bit, let's have a look at what we've got here. So you can see that from academia and throughout your professional career, Autodesk provides educational resources. So these can be instructor-led in the classroom, self-paced like you're doing now, obviously with LinkedIn Learning, or you can do regular online training by way of webinars and things like that as well. Certification is that benchmark, though, that basically gives you that level of expertise. So certification by Autodesk means that you are either an Autodesk certified user or an Autodesk certified professional, which is exactly why you're taking this particular course, so that you can review all of your skill set to become that certified professional in AutoCAD. So what we've got here is a quick description of the certification. And if I just scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's a link at the bottom here that says View Certification Options. Now, all of the certification is run by an organization called Certiport. And the nice thing is I can click on that link there, View Certification Options, and it will take me to the Certiport page. We'll look at that in 1 second. There's also some next steps there as well. You can locate an Autodesk Certification Center. That's normally your Autodesk Training Center. They tend to be a certification center as well. And you can also find an Autodesk Certified Professional, because once you've got that benchmark, that certification, you're listed on the Autodesk website. So if you're looking for certified professionals in AutoCAD, you can go find them and perhaps employ them on a project that you're working on at the time. So let's click on that View Certification Options link. If I click there, that will now take me to the Certiport webpage. And as you can see, it takes a few seconds to load up. And what you've got there now is the Autodesk certifications page. And what we can do is just click on Certify here like so. And what you've got now is the Autodesk certifications page and the entry level to advanced workflows learn at every level. So you've got all the different products there that you can get certification in. In this case, it would be our AutoCAD certifications like so. Takes us there to the link, and you can see there that you've got Autodesk Certified User and Autodesk Certified Professional. Those are the two levels of AutoCAD certification that you can get, and the whole idea of this particular course is that you can study all of the topics needed to review and refresh your skills to take your certification exams. So what we're going to look at first is the Autodesk Certified User certification. And this is for AutoCAD in this particular case. Obviously, there's other products that you can take certification in as well. Now, there's two different levels of certification with AutoCAD, and one of those is Certified User that we're going to look at now. And then in the next video, we'll go through the Certified Professional route. Both of them, though, use this Autodesk certification pathway. Now you'll see the PDF in front of you. I've got that open in Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat Pro. And you can see there that it's a nice infographic explaining exactly what's going on with the Autodesk Certified User exam. So it's entry level here. And as you can see, you do your courses, your self-paced study, you take your ACU practice test, get 40 hours experience using AutoCAD. You then go to your testing center and take your exam, and you're then an Autodesk Certified User. You can then develop your experience further, as you can see here, 400 hours of real-world experience, and work towards the Certified Professional. We'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. Now, the Certified User exam is a really good exam to get you started with AutoCAD and your certifications. However, this course is the Certified Professional exam. But the good thing is if you study all the syllabus for the Certified Professional exam and just take your Certified User exam, you're covering all of those topics anyway. So you'll be at a standard of Certified Professional, but you'll be taking the user exam. So you'll be overqualified, so to speak. Now, the Certified User examination is here. If I click on this tab here, this is the exam objectives for the Autodesk Certified User exam for AutoCAD. So if I just scroll down, you can see these topics here, and these topics are all in this course. Things like your basic drawing skills, your draw objects, drawing with accuracy, and so on. And all of these PDFs, I've made sure that they're in the library for you to download and obviously utilize in your reviewing and your revision to take your certification exams. So there's our exam objectives there for the Autodesk Certified User exam. And they're all in a list like that in a PDF for you to follow. And also, more importantly, you can apply this list to the exercises in this particular course. In the previous video, we talked about the Autodesk Certified User examination. Now, you can use this course to study for that particular certification with Autodesk if you want to, but the whole idea of this particular course is the Autodesk Certified Professional certification for AutoCAD. So all of the exercises that you use in this course will get you to Certified Professional level, but you can also use them to get you to Certified User level, even though that is a level below Certified Professional. So we're back in the Autodesk certification pathway. We talked about the Certified User in the previous video, so that's here. So we're going to assume now that you've done your Certified User examination. If you want to, you can jump straight into Certified Professional if you want to as well, if you've got that 400 hours of real-world experience down here. You then do more courses, self-paced study. You then take your ACP practice test, your Autodesk Certified Professional practice test. You then go to your testing center, or you can do it at a training center, as you can see here, and then you get your Certified Professional status. And that's your benchmark. That's what you should be aspiring to if you're taking this certification course from the library. The whole idea is all the exercises allow you to review and assess your skills to get you to this Certified Professional status. So if we jump into this tab here in my Adobe Acrobat, this is the syllabus now for the Certified Professional examination. So if we come down, you'll recognize some of these from the Certified User examination, but you'll also see there's a lot more. And you see there's a lot more topics there than the Certified User exam. But again, I've made sure this PDF is in the library for you to download. And you can then follow along with these exam objectives, and they follow along with all of the topics and the exercises in this particular course to get you to do that review and assessment of your skills before you take your examination. We're starting a new chapter now in our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. And we're going to have a look at drawing objects, how we draw objects in AutoCAD. So I've got a new drawing available for you. It's called Lines and Rectangles.dwg. And the name kind of gives it away. We're going to look at drawing lines and rectangles in a blank AutoCAD drawing that you can see on the screen. So when you download lines and rectangles.dwg from the website as an exercise file, you can see it's an empty drawing. The model space is empty right now. The only thing I will ask of you is make sure that you go to the Home tab on the ribbon, go to the Layers panel, click on the drop down, and just make sure you're using the Object layer as your current drafting layer. So we're going to have a look now at drawing lines and rectangles. So we're going to go to the Home tab on the ribbon, going to go to the Draw panel here and click on the Line command there. Now you'll notice I use the ribbon a lot. I don't tend to use keyboard input there. If you're using keyboard input, that's absolutely fine, but it's entirely up to you which user interface you use to obviously draw in AutoCAD. So it's prompting me now to specify the first point of my line. That's nice and easy. I'm going to type in 0, 0. The coordinates pop up on the dynamic input there, and I'm going to press enter. Now it may look like it's off the bottom of the screen. It is, so hold down the wheel on the mouse, move the mouse upwards and just pan upwards a little, and you'll see that you can see where that line now starts. Now, down on the status bar, make sure that you've got your object snaps on, your object snap tracking on, and your polar tracking on. And make sure your polar tracking is just set to that 45-degree setting there, so you get multiples of 45 degrees. The default is this one here, 90, but the 45 one just gives you a little bit more flexibility. So I'm going to drag vertically upwards like that, and you'll see that I get the 90-degree polar tracking kicking in with the little green dash line. I type in 20 and press enter to confirm. And that gives me a vertical line. Now you see it's gone off the top of the screen there. Again, you can roll back on the wheel a notch or two, hold down the wheel on the mouse, and just zoom out until you get it to the right size. So you may need to roll back on the wheel, pan or zoom like so. And as you can see, I can now see that nicely on the screen. If I go back one more notch on the wheel there, I can zoom in and out a little bit more if I need to. So you can see there I can zoom in or zoom out. It's entirely up to you. I'm then going to drag that across to the right, again using the polar tracking. Type in 10 and press enter. Come vertically downwards using the polar tracking. Type in 5 and press enter. Across again, like so. Type in 10 and press enter. And as you can see, just follow my lead here, vertically upwards again, 5 and enter. Across to the right again, I'm going to type in 10 and enter. I'm going to come vertically down now, like so, and I'm going to type in 20 and enter. Now, you'll notice I've got a shape there, but it's not fully closed. So if I pan upwards a little bit, you can see there that I need to take this line to that last point there. Now, what I could have done there is used object snap tracking if I wanted to, or there's a really nice feature if I'm drawing a continuous group of lines like I have done, where I can just right click on the mouse, and if I go to close, that closes the shape, and as you can see I've got the shape in place like so. So what I've got there now obviously is the ability now to draw lines in my model space in AutoCAD. It's that simple, and you notice there I've given you the direct distance entry method using polar tracking. Now, it may be that you need to use coordinates. It may be that you need to use snaps to draw lines as well. It does depend on what environment in which you're working. But in this particular case, we've obviously used direct distance entry, that distance value that we typed in each time, using our polar tracking to define the direction of the line. What we're going to look at now is drawing some rectangles using our coordinates in AutoCAD. Now, you'll notice when we started drawing the outer shape, the yellow lines, the first point was 0, 0. The quickest way to type in coordinates when you're using AutoCAD is to literally type them as coordinates. So 5, 4, 10, 7. You can also use negative values, which purely define the direction of the line from one point to another. So I'm going to draw some rectangles now, which you can follow my lead on as well. Home tab on the ribbon again, into the draw panel, click on the flyout here, and you want rectangle. I come into the drawing area, it's asking for the first corner point of your rectangle. Now in this particular case, that's going to be 2, 2. So I type in 2, 2, and I press enter. Now just before I press enter though, note all the different options on the command line at the bottom of the screen. Once I press enter, that prompts me for the start point of my rectangle. And as I drag upwards to the right, you can see I can size that rectangle in a freehand fashion. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to specify the size of my rectangle. Now, I can do this in 2 different ways. I can use a relative coordinate if I wish, or I can actually specify the dimensions, as you can see down there on the command line. In order to specify a relative coordinate, I need the @ symbol, which is normally Shift and 2 on your keyboard. It might not be, depends on American or English keyboard, but it will be Shift and something on your keyboard. Look for that @ symbol, the one that you use for your email addresses and things. So if I put an @ in there like that, it appears in the dynamic input. And what I'm going to do now is specify the size of my rectangle. Now, what you've got to specify is the X direction followed by the Y direction. So in my X direction, I want it to go 6.5, like that. I then press the comma key because it's a coordinate. And in the Y direction, I want it to go up by 11.5, like that. So basically, I'm going from that first point of the rectangle, the lower left corner, along 6.5, along the X-axis to the right, because it's a positive value. And then I'm coming up the Y-axis, again up because it's positive, 11.5 units. When I press enter now, there's my rectangle nicely placed like so. So that's one way of placing a rectangle. Let's go back now to the rectangle command. Now I could go up to the draw panel, click on the flyout to get rectangle. I've just drawn a rectangle. I can press enter or spacebar to repeat the rectangle command. You can see it on the command line there. So I need to specify another corner point. This time it's going to be 18,4. There's the coordinates. Enter to confirm. And it appears over here on the right hand side. So you can see there in my lines and rectangles drawing here, I'm drawing another rectangle now. And what I need to do is specify the size of it. Now this time I'm going to right click and I'm going to specify the dimensions off of the shortcut menu. So the length of the rectangle in the X direction will be 8.5, like so. And then the width this time will be 5.5. So I type it in like so. I then press enter. There's my rectangle. Now, be aware that you haven't finished the command yet. I can now rotate that rectangle around the original start point, that original 18,4 coordinate. So I'm going to move it up, and basically I'm going for the top right quadrant. Can you see that as I go round? So top right quadrant, click once on the mouse, and it places your rectangle. So now what we've done is we've drawn some lines and some rectangles, and now we're ready to move on to the next video. In the previous video, we drew some lines and some rectangles and we created a simple drawing. What I've done is I've saved that drawing as another drawing for you to use now. You can download it from the exercise files on the website. This time the new drawing is called Circles, Arcs and Polygons. So we're going to draw some circles, arcs and polygons in the same drawing that we created in the previous video. But I've just saved it out as a different file name just to give you a little bit of flexibility into how you approach each of the exercises in this particular chapter. As the name of the drawing goes, we're going to draw some circles, arcs and polygons. Now what I want you to remember is that the bottom left corner of this shape that you've got on the screen is 0, 0 in the model space. Also make sure that you're on the object layer. You can see that in the layers panel there on the home tab on the ribbon. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at drawing some circles first of all. Now the first circle I'm going to draw is going to be inside this rectangle here. Now the circle command again is on the draw panel in the home tab on the ribbon. So there's the draw panel there. I click on the flyout for the circle. You can see there's lots of different types of circles you can draw with. Now, it may be in your AutoCAD Certified Professional exam that it asks you to use a different type of circle than the one I show you now. Just be aware of that and be aware that there's lots of different methods of drawing circles in AutoCAD. I'm going to use this one, tan, 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 which creates a circle tangential to 3 objects, like the little tooltip that pops out shows you. So I click on tan, tan, tan. Now the good thing is when it comes to object snaps, AutoCAD now knows only to find tangents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover here. Can you see? It gives me a deferred tangent there. So I click on that line there, hover over this line, click on that line there, hover over this line, click on that line there, 3 tangents, so it now knows where to place that particular circle. Now, let's have a look at a slightly different method of drawing a circle as well. I'll go back up to the draw panel, click on the flyout again, and this time I'm going to use tan, tan, radius. So I click on it, come into the drawing area. Again, it knows to look for tangents. So I'm going to select this line here for a tangent, click, this line here for a tangent, click, like so. It then asks for the radius of the circle. What I'm going to go for is a radius of 2, which will give me a diameter of 4. So I type in 2, press enter to confirm, and there's my circle of radius 2, tangential to those 2 lines that I selected. Now, it's all well and good having objects that you can use to provide you with tangents to create your circles. What happens if I need to physically place a circle in space using a coordinate, for example? So what I'll do here is go back to the circle command, click on the little flyout here, and I'm going to create a circle of diameter 5 at a known coordinate. So I select center diameter, come into the drawing area, and it prompts for center point of circle. I can use an object snap, I can use a mid between 2 points, I can use a coordinate. I'm going to use a coordinate, and my coordinate is going to be 25, 16. I'm then going to press enter, and you'll notice it's over here on the right hand side. Now I can drag and freehand the diameter if I want to, but I want the diameter of this circle to be 5, so I type in 5, I press enter, and there's my circle, diameter 5 at a coordinate of 25, 16 for its center. So that's how quick and easy it is to draw circles. What about arcs? Well, let's have a look at that. Let's just pan down a little bit, and I'm going to use this line here and this line here to draw some arcs. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. You can draw arcs quickly and effectively using the arc command, but you can also create what is called a fillet arc as well. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go to the draw panel again, click on the flyout for arc here, like so. Lots and lots of different methods of drawing arcs. I'm not going to bore you with all of them. I'm going to go for this one here, start, center, end. And I'm going to come into the drawing area, and it asks for the start point of your arc. Now, bear in mind the default setting for arcs and angles is counter or anti-clockwise. So my start point of my arc should go the opposite way that the hands of a clock go. So if I start here on this right hand end here, start point of arc there, center point of arc will be the midpoint snap there, then the end of my arc will be there. And I click there like so. There's my arc. Start, center, end. If I went the other way, the arc would go this way because it's then going clockwise, for example. Now, what about this fillet arc I mentioned? If I go to the Modify panel here, click on the flyout here and select Fillet, like so. If I come into the drawing area now, if I hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and then select this line and this line, it automatically gives me an arc because it's filleting those 2 ends of those 2 lines I selected. But it'll only do that if I hold down Shift, or will it? Let's delete that arc there. I'll just delete it using the delete key, select and delete. Let's go back to fillet again. So I click on the flyout and select fillet, and I go that line there, places the arc automatically. It's a lot quicker than start, center, end. Now, as long as you've got 2 parallel lines, either vertical or horizontal, you can always join the 2 ends of the line with an arc like that. It's a quick little way of drawing arcs. Last but not least, let's have a little look at the polygon command. Again, that's on the draw panel, and it's here with rectangle. Click on the flyout and go to polygon and come into the drawing area. Now you can specify any number of sides between 3 all the way up to 1024 sides with the polygon command. Now, I'm not going to go for a 1024 sided polygon. Not really effective, and it won't really show what I want to show you. Basically, you've got two different, or maybe three different types of polygon in AutoCAD. You have an inscribed, a circumscribed, and an edge polygon. And I'm going to show you all three. So, number of sides, I'm going to go for 6. Let's use a hexagon. Nice and easy. And then it'll ask for the center of the polygon. I'm going to use the midpoint snap here as if I was drawing a circle. Now, as I click there for the center, I get the option of inscribed or circumscribed. Inscribed, you imagine it's inside the circle. Circumscribed, you're drawing it around the edges of a circle, and the edges are tangential to the circle. So if I go inscribed and come out, can you see, as I come up now, can you see it's an apex on the actual hexagon? So if I go vertically up like that, I can do it that way, or I can take it out this way. And that distance is from the center of the imaginary circle around the polygon. So if I come out there and type in 3, it's a radius of a circle, enter, and there's my polygon, like that, my 6-sided polygon, my hexagon. Now, I can do that the other way. If I go back up here and I select polygon again, it'll remember the 6 sides, so I just press enter. I'll use a midpoint here again on the other side this time, and I'll come out and I'll go for circumscribed about circle, and you'll see that it's going to the midpoint of the side. Can you see that? So as I come up now, the center of the circle is going to the midpoint on the side of the polygon. So if I take that down, I'm going to go for 1 there for the radius, and there's my much smaller one, but it's going to the midpoint of the side this time instead. Now there's one more way of drawing a polygon, and it's the edge option. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this edge here, this polygon I've just created. So I'm going to go back to the polygon command here, stick with the 6 sides and press enter. I'll now right click and select edge, and using my object snaps, I'm going to go, I want that endpoint to that endpoint to form the edge of the 6-sided polygon, and there again is a hexagon all drawn up neat and tidy using the polygon command. Now I've used some very simple examples here to show you how to draw circles, arcs and polygons in preparation for your AutoCAD Certified Professional exam. We're starting a new chapter now in our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. We're going to have a look at how we draw with accuracy in AutoCAD. Now, I cannot stress enough that the examples I'm giving you are quite simply that. They're examples. They will not replicate what you will get in your Certified Professional examination. So what I'm giving you here is the ability to review and revise and prepare. It will not guarantee you a pass in your exam. So for this particular chapter now, we're looking at draw with accuracy. And I've got a new drawing for you. You can see the name of it at the top of the screen. It's called Draw with Accuracy _ tracking.dwg. So you can guess by the name of the drawing file that it's going to be tracking that we're going to look at, the object snap tracking. So what we've got is we've got a side view and an end view of a small little block component with a little cutout and a hole in it. And what we're going to do is generate a plan view to the top left above that side view. And we're going to use object snap tracking to do that. Now the lovely thing about object snap tracking is it allows you to take up to 7 points concurrently and track them without having to draw construction lines. It's very quick and easy to do. So just make sure you're on the object layer initially. You can see that in the layers panel there on the home tab on the ribbon. It's in the little drop down here. Just make sure you're using the object layer there like so. Now, what I'm going to do is go down to the status bar. Just going to check that object snaps are on. Object snap tracking obviously is on, but also check that your polar tracking is on. It's always useful to have that if you need an angle to measure a line against as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start drawing some lines. So we're going to go up to the draw panel on the home tab, click on the line command, and I'm going to hover over this point here. So I just hover over it. I don't click on it. I hover over it and I drag vertically upwards and it'll say extension. That means my extension snap is on. So if you don't get that, go to your object snaps and switch your extension snap on. I'm going to type in 50 there and enter. And you can see that my line now starts 50 above that point. Now I need the outside shape first in the plan view. So if I come across this way now, like so, and come up here, can you see it snaps again using the object snap tracking? So I've got all of that in place like so. There's my line there. So what I can do is I can press enter to finish now, and that's done. So there's my line there. So how do I know the depth of this shape here? How do I get that to project over here so I know how high it is? Well, what I can do there is I can draw a line and just use it as a sort of sacrificial line, and I can go from this corner here. And I'll drag it up this way. Make sure you get your 45-degree polar tracking, like so. And I'll click once, but make sure it goes all the way past the end of that right-handmost view there, and click. And then enter to finish. So what I can do now is I can draw another line, and I can take it from here, like so, and go upwards, and get an intersection there like that, enter to finish. Let's do that from the other side as well. And I'll go from here, and up to there, like so. What does that give me if I now press enter to close that line command? I can now draw some lines that basically object snap track to the endpoints there. Now, the good thing is I can take this line away. I don't actually need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to take my line this time. I'm going to draw the line using the line command. And I'm just going to hover over some points. If I hover there like that, and then hover over this point like that and come this way, that's where my plan view corner starts. I then hover over this point here on the 45-degree line. As I go across, it remembers, and with the polar tracking as well, I've got a line there. So there's the right-hand side of my plan view. I can now start using object snap tracking in a much quicker way, rather than just drawing that line at random like I did initially. I can just hover over each point. Can you see I'm hovering and dragging using the object snap tracking? And as I come across now, I can get to that endpoint there, click there, enter to finish. There's the outline of my plan view. So what you've got to remember is object snap tracking and that 45-degree line there. That's really useful. So what we can do now is I can utilize this 45-degree line using all these lines here as well. So I can project another line up now. So I'll come off of the cutout line here, and I'll come upwards and I'll get an intersection there and click there, enter to finish. Now again, I can utilize my object snap tracking again. This is really useful. It really makes my life easier. So I go to the line command, I hover over this point here on the side view. I come up to the plan view. When I get the intersection, I then click there and my line starts there. Now, I've got the cutout line here coming off of the 45-degree line. So I hover there, and as I come across, you'll see that I get a snap point again. So I click there, and all I've got to do now is take that across to there, get the intersection, click there, enter to finish. There's my cutout in plan. Now, you'll also notice I've got some dashed lines here. These indicate a hole through my shape here. So what I can do now is I can project those lines up again. Now, what I would do here, if I was drawing hidden detail, I would perhaps use the hidden layer there. But I don't need to because this is in plan. So basically, this hole will now be visible. So what I do now is I go up to the line command again, and I project these lines up onto my 45-degree line. So there's one line there, spacebar or enter to repeat the line command, and there's one line there as well. And then obviously enter to finish. Now the benefit I've got here is I can actually draw a circle if I want to. I can use a 2-point circle for this. So if I go up to the circle command and I want a 2-point circle, as in each end of a diameter, click there. Now this is where you've got to think a little bit about your object snap tracking. So specify first end point of circle's diameter. So I need a corresponding end. Now a circle is the same all the way around. So I can figure this out as I go. If I come up here like this and I hover on that point there and then hover on that point there, as I come across, can you see I get that point there like so? And then what I can do is I can now hover over that point there and hover over that point there. And as I come across, I should get an intersection again. Can you see? And there's my diameter indicated by the orange lines. Click one more time, and there's my circle. Now, all of the lines that I use that are sacrificial, I can get rid of. So I'll do a little crossing selection there, just delete those, and I've now got my plan view exactly in place, purely using object snap tracking. What we're going to look at now is the ability to draw with accuracy using our coordinates in AutoCAD. Again, we're in the Model tab. I've got a new drawing for you. It's called Draw with Accuracy _ coordinates.dwg. So you can download that from the exercise files from the website and use it to follow along with the video. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the layer called Lines here on the drop down on the Layers panel. Make sure you're using the Lines layer. And we're going to draw some lines using coordinates only. So what we're going to do now is we're going to draw a square with 4 lines, and we're going to use coordinates to do it. So I'm going to go to the line command on the draw panel on the home tab on the ribbon, click on the line command and come into the drawing area. The first point of our line that we're going to specify is 0, 0 and enter. And you'll see that it goes over here sort of almost towards the bottom of the screen. Just pan upwards a little bit, holding down the wheel on the mouse and moving the mouse. And what we're going to do now is we're going to type coordinates for each corner of the square. Now the square is going to be 400 units by 400 units. So I want to go vertically upwards. So in this particular case, I'm going to type 0, 400. So 0 along the x-axis, but 400 up in the y-axis. When I press enter, you'll see that that draws a vertical line. Again, it's a bit big, so you might want to possibly zoom back a bit and pan a bit, like that, so that you can see what you're doing. Now, I want to draw the top face of the square, going across here, this way. Now, I'm going from this corner here. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cheat a little bit. Now, bear in mind, it's going to be a relative coordinate, so I need an @ symbol, and that's my little cheat. If I do @ now, it will draw it relative from the last point, the end point of the last line. So it means it's relative. So I now need to go along the x-axis to the right. So that will be at 400, 0 in the y-axis, press enter, and there's my line there. Now, the next point has to come vertically down. Now, I can, as you can see, use the polar tracking if I want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to move it over like that. And I'm again going to type @ like so. And I now need to come down the y-axis. So that's going to be a negative value. So I now need to come down the y-axis. But am I moving anywhere on the x-axis? No, I'm not. So it's at 0 on the x-axis, minus 400. Specifies direction. Press enter, like so, and it comes down. Now, the lovely thing is, obviously, I can now just right-click and close my line segments because they're all continuous, and it takes me back to the beginning where I started at 0, 0. So as you can see, using that relative, that @ with my coordinates, allows me to draw really accurately in AutoCAD. Now, remember, object snap tracking, object snaps, and polar tracking. Now, we looked at those in the last video. What we're going to do is utilize those a little bit to create a point where we want to draw from. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the line command again on the draw panel. I'm going to hover on that midpoint snap there, and I'm going to hover on that midpoint snap there. As I come down, that'll give me the exact center point of the square, and I click. This time, I want my line to go off this way at 45 degrees. Now, if I want to do that, I've got to move along the x-axis and up the y-axis. So that now means that I've got to specify a distance, and I'm going to type @ again, because I want it to be relative. So I need the @ symbol, like so. I'm going to go 400, 400. So 400 along the x-axis, 400 up the y-axis, enter. And if I just roll back a bit and zoom out, you can see there's my line there, like so. Now, what I'm going to do is come vertically down, and I can utilize my tracking, hover over that end and click there, and enter to finish, like so. So as you can see there, very quick and easy to work with, obviously, your coordinates to draw lines at angles and draw straight lines. Now, if I want to draw a line at an angle, what I can do is do it a slightly different way. I might have a distance and an angle that I need to follow. So I'll do a line command now. I'll use this endpoint snap here. I'll click like so. And as I come out and up, you can see there that my polar tracking will allow me to work at 45 degrees if I want to. I'm not going to. You can see the distance there as I go along that polar tracking, though, is 298.3398. Let's say 300. So again, I use the relative, the at symbol, and I want it 300 long. But if I do a less than, like so, on the keyboard rather than a comma, which I've just done, can you see the comma automatically takes you to coordinate readout? How do I get an angle readout on there? Well, let's just hit escape. Let's not use coordinates this time. Let's do that again. So we go to the line command, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to switch off my polar tracking so that I know I've got no green lines, little green dash lines to confuse me. I snap to the endpoint snap and I come out. Now, obviously, can you see the dynamic input is still giving me that angle, but I can't get exactly 45 degrees because the polar tracking is off. So we're going to do that 300 distance again. So at symbol first, 300 long, and then I do shift and comma, and it gives me an angle. How lovely is that? So I can do a distance and an angle, 45 degrees there, enter to finish, and there's my line, enter to close the line command. So you can see that I can use angles and relative as well. And the other one as well that I could use, if I want to use absolute coordinates, is I could use the hashtag as well. Now the hashtag I can use anytime I want to, and you'll find that again on your keyboard, depending on whether you've got an English or an American style keyboard. Hashtag is useful, and if you're using an English keyboard, a UK keyboard, you will find that the pound symbol will actually give you a hash key unless you've got a 102 keyboard layout. But if you put a hashtag instead of an at, it's absolute coordinates and they are relative to 0, 0 in your coordinate system. We're staying in our Draw with Accuracy chapter, but we've got a new drawing for you. It's called Draw with Accuracy _ isometric, and you can download it from the website and use it as the exercise file for this particular video. Now, as the name of the drawing states, we're looking at isometric and the what they call ISO draft functionality of AutoCAD, where you can create isometric drawings that give a representation of a 3D object, even though they are a 2D drawing. And what you can do is you can specify where your ISO plane is, whether it's to the side, looking from the top, and so on. How do we do that? Well, it's in your status bar settings, but before we do that, just make sure in your layers panel, you're set to the object layer, as you can see at the top of the screen there. And you just use the layer drop down, just make sure you're using the layer object, like so. Now, in order to draw in this ISO draft setting, it needs to be switched on. It's down here on the status bar, and it's this funny little sort of line crossover thing. If I click there, that switches it on and it goes red and green. And can you see my crosshair changes? And what it's doing now is it's telling me that I'm in this isometric drafting setting. And what I can do is I can click on the arrow here, and I can set my isoplane to the left, to the top, or to the right. So if I set it to the top at the moment, like so, and come into the drawing area, I can specify the top of my isometric view. Now this is really nice. I really like this because it allows me to draw quickly and accurately with the right angles, the 30 and the 60 degrees that I need to draw in an isometric fashion. So I go to the line command, like so, and I come into the drawing area. I'm going to pick a point roughly in the center of the screen, and as I drag, it gives me that 30-degree angle on the polar tracking. And I want that line to be 10 long, so I type in a distance in the distance box, and I press enter to finish, and as you can see, it's drawn the line. I just press enter again now to finish the line command. I'm going to go back to the line command now. I'm going to use this object snap here and come up this way, and can you see it automatically gives me the angle, the 150-degree angle. I want this line to be 7 long, and I press enter again, and then enter to finish the line command. Now the benefit I've got here is each of these lines as I draw them will be accurate. They will be that long and they're isometric. So what I can do, I'll just pan down a little bit now, and I'm now going to do the same again. Line command again, but I come off of here, like so, and as I come out this way, I can type 10 again as the distance, and enter to finish, like so, and then enter to finish the line command. Now I know that that is isometric, so what I can do now is just go line, and I can go endpoint to endpoint and enter to finish. So that's my isometric plan. You can see it's kind of rotated at that angle of 30 degrees. If I pan that upwards a little bit, what I can do now is change my isoplane settings if I wish. So I can come down here to the status bar, and perhaps I want isoplane left, like so. So if I do that now, and I now go to the line command and click on this point here, can you see I can vertically draw a line there, type in 4, enter, and then as I come off, it adopts the angle that I need. Can you see? So it's just adopting that angle. So I can hover there and come vertically down and use things like object snap tracking. And as I come up this way, I've got the angle again, so I can hover there, come down this way, and it all snaps neatly at angles so that I can now draw my isometric view. So I've snapped to the endpoint there, press enter to finish, draw one more little vertical line from endpoint to endpoint, enter to finish, and there's my isometric view. So with that ISO drafting and the ISO planes, it's very quick and easy to create a nice little isometric view in 2D that represents a 3D object. We're starting another chapter now in AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. We're going to have a look now at how we modify objects in AutoCAD. So we've got a drawing now called modifyingobjects.dwg. You can see it there at the top of the screen. You can download that from the website and use it as the exercise file for this whole chapter. We're going to start in the first video, work our way through the videos in the chapter, just save it step by step as you go from video to video, because all of these are different modifying tools that we're going to use in AutoCAD. So ideally, we're just going to use the same drawing, save after each video. It's a little bit easier than using a separate drawing each time as we work through the chapter. So, first thing we're going to look at when we modify objects in AutoCAD is move and copy. Now, there are normally 3 ways to get a command to kick in AutoCAD. You can use the keyboard, you can use the ribbon at the top of the screen, or you can use the shortcut menu as well in some cases. I'm going to look at the move command first. Now, I mentioned the shortcut menu. If I select that rectangle there and I right click and I go to the move command there on the shortcut menu, prompts me for a base point. I select that endpoint snap there, make sure your object snaps are on, and I drag that to the right, making sure my polar tracking is kicking in with the 0 degrees there. Type in 1.5, press enter, and that's moved that rectangle 1.5 units to the right using my object snaps and my polar tracking. Now, I could use a different derivation of the move command. It's up here on the modify panel on the home tab on the ribbon. There's move there. Click on move, prompts me to select the object I want to move. I pick the rectangle I've just moved, press enter to confirm, ask me for the base point again. I'll use the bottom left corner, the snap there. Click and drag to the left this time, as you can see. And you can see that's moving to the left along the polar tracking line. I type in 1.5 again, and it's back to where it was before. Now, don't forget you can type in move if you wish on the keyboard and press enter. That'll also allow you to use the move command. Now, the copy command, on the other hand, is the same sort of process, but you're moving, but you're leaving the original behind. So let's have a look at the copy command now. Again, you've got those 3 minimum number of derivations of the command. So I can select this particular rectangle or this particular rectangle. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this rectangle here, like so. Now, you'll find that I'm going to do something a bit weird here, and you'll kind of get what I'm doing in a moment. So if I select that rectangle there, and I right click, I've got copy there. Copy selection it is. It's not like copy on the Windows clip. So if I go copy selection now, it's going to prompt me now to select a base point. Now the base point I'm going to select is going to be this one. So if I select that endpoint there, as I move now, if I go to this endpoint here, I get exactly the same spacing. So if I click there like that, it copies in a multiple way. So if I go to there, can you see I'm getting exactly the same spacing each time? So when I get to this point here, I can stagger those, and I know that the spacing is the same all the way across by using a slightly offset base point. So when I press enter to finish, it finishes the copy command. Now the copy command is great because, like you see, it does that multiple thing. I can just keep copying until I press enter, which is a really nice feature. I don't have to go copy 1, copy 2, copy 3. And all I've got to do is use the appropriate base point And in this case, I snapped to another point instead of specifying a distance. Now, don't forget, you have got copy here on the modify panel. It's right there. So I can copy there. So what I could do, for example, is I might, let's say, delete this one. So what I'll do, I'll go to copy now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this one here, like we did before. Press enter to confirm, similar to the move command. And I'm going to pick the same base point over here, click. And as I come across, I get to that end point there. I click, puts it in the space, enter to finish. Don't forget as well, you can just type copy as well if you're using keyboard input. So that's the move and copy commands as we start to modify our objects in this particular chapter. Don't forget to save the file, and we'll move on now to the next video in the chapter. We're staying in a modifying objects.dwg file, and I hope you've saved it as per what we did in the last video. Now, what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at rotate and scale, and we're going to rotate and scale one of the rectangles that we moved and copied in the previous video. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to select this rectangle here, first of all, the one on the right-hand end, and just delete it by hitting delete on the keyboard. Done, like so. We're going to move this rectangle here. So I'm going to click on it, right-click, and go move on the shortcut menu, bottom left corner as the endpoint snap, click on it, drag it to the right using the polar tracking, and type in 1 as the distance to move, and then enter to finish. Just gives us a bit of space. Now we're going to rotate that particular rectangle. Now again, rotate is on the modify panel on the ribbon on the home tab. You can type rotate if you want to, or my preferred method, select the rectangle, right click, and select rotate on the shortcut menu. So I select rotate like so. Now ask me for a base point that I'm going to rotate the rectangle from. We're going to use our object snap tracking, so make sure it's on your status bar at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to hover over that midpoint there. As I come in, I get the center of the rectangle, so I left click, and then you can see I can rotate that around the center of the rectangle. It will now prompt me for a rotation angle, which is going to be 90 degrees, and enter to finish. And there's my rotated rectangle like so. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the rectangle. I'm going to make it bigger. And I'm going to make it bigger by a factor of 1.5. So it's going to be half again. It's going to be a bit bigger. So we select the rectangle like so. And again, it's up on the modify panel if I want it. I can type scale if I want to. But I'm going to select the rectangle, right click, and select scale like so. It'll prompt me again for a base point. Object snap tracking again. Hover over the midpoint here, hover over the midpoint here, come up and find the center of the rectangle and click. Now, as soon as I do that, you can see as I drag, I can make that bigger and smaller freehand. I'm going to specify a scale factor of 1.5 and enter. And you can see it's now 1.5 times bigger, and the original rectangle has disappeared. Be aware when you scale things, you're scaling the original object, so there's nothing left behind. It's not like copy, for example. You can leave it behind if you wish, though. Let me show you. If I just undo that, and I'll select the rectangle again, and I'll right-click and go to Scale, like so. Ask for a base point, so I'll hover over the midpoint again, hover over the midpoint again, and get that center point there and left-click. Now you'll notice down on the command line there, can you see copy and reference? So if I right click and select copy, it'll leave a copy behind. And if I specify a scale factor now of 1.5 again and press enter, it leaves the original behind. So remember, you can copy, but it won't copy by default. So that's your rotate and scale when you're modifying objects in AutoCAD. Once again, we're staying in our modifying objects.dwg file, and hopefully you're saving it as we go along and as we work through the chapter. Now, what we're going to have a look at now is the array command in AutoCAD, and we're going to look at the rectangular array and also the polar array in this particular case. Now, what we're going to look at is the ability to modify objects using the array command. And we're going to use this little circle here, and we're going to create a rectangular array first of all. So I'm going to go to the Home tab on the ribbon and into the Modify panel here. Now, the array command is not available on the shortcut menu, so I do have to go up here, click on the flyout here, and you can see that I've got a rectangular array, I've got a path array, I've also got a polar array. We want a rectangular array, that one there. I select the object that I want to array, which is the circle, click on it and press enter to confirm. And as you can see, it automatically gives me a 4x3 array there based on the original object. Now, it may be that I want to change that. I might want a different number of rows. I might want a different number of columns. So I'm going to change the number of columns here to 5 up on the ribbon. I'll type in 5 and I'll press enter. And what that does is it gives me those columns all set up like so. Now, I can change this anytime I want to in the ribbon itself. And the array itself is associative. So once I've created the array, they're all joined together as a group. And I will have to explode the group if I want to lose one of the original objects that I've arrayed, for example. So what I've got there now is an array. It's got 5 columns and 3 rows. And the spacing between those is 1.5. I've got 1.5 there, 1.5 there, like so. Now, once you're done and you're happy with that, you click on Close Array on the ribbon. Now, if I select this array, you can see it's one whole group. And as soon as I do that, it takes me into the Array tab on the ribbon again, that contextual tab, and it allows me to edit the array itself. So I can, for example, edit the source object, replace an item with a different object. I can reset the array and restore any erased items and remove any item overrides. So I can edit and I can change the array if I wish. I'm just going to click on Close Array like so. Now, if I want to remove the objects that I've arrayed, I have to click there, go back to the Home tab on the ribbon, into the Modify panel, and click on Explode. That will then explode them into individual objects. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove a group of the individual objects like so, those ones, and also the lower row as well. So I'll click and drag a crossing selection over those, like so. And then I want to lose these two, like that. And I'm also going to lose these two here, like that as well. So I'm left basically with the center circle from that array. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a polar array around this circle, like so. Now, how do I do that? Well, thinking about it, I need another circle. So I might have to undo what I've erased. So if I go back there one step and undo, I'm going to remove just the one circle this time and leave that one behind, like so. And then what I'm going to do is jump up to the Array command again and select Polar Array. Now, it's asking me to select the object I want to array, which is going to be this circle. And then I'm going to press Enter to confirm. The center point of the array is going to be the center of the other circle. And as you can see, it automatically drops in an array of 6 objects. Now, again, I've got properties that I can change. I can change the number of items to, say, 8 in the ribbon there. And that updates accordingly like so. And then I close the array again like so. Now, again, what I can do here is I can select the array like that. And it's all associative, so it's all joined together. I then go to the Home tab and I explode if I want them to go to individual objects. Now they're all individual circles and not part of that array. So I can remove the ones I don't need. I might not want that one, nor that one. So I just delete those, hitting the delete key, and I've got a slightly different looking arrangement of my circles. So that's how you use the array command in AutoCAD. And I've shown you some of the simple tools there in how you array and place array objects in a drawing. Now, obviously, as I've stressed previously, these particular exercises allow you to revise, review, and prepare for your examination. I'm not saying that that's the sort of question or case study that you might get in your exam. We're staying in our modifying objects.dwg file, and what we're going to look at when we modify AutoCAD drawings this time is trim and extend. You'll find them on the Modify panel on the Home tab on the ribbon. And we're going to look at trimming first, and we're going to trim some of these green lines here on the left of the drawing. So I go up to the Modify panel, I click on the flyout here and select Trim first, and I'm going to select my cutting edges. My cutting edges are going to be this line here and this line here, and Enter to confirm that. I then get the prompt, Select Object to Trim or Shift Select to Extend. So when I'm trimming, I can hold down Shift and extend. When I'm extending, I can hold down Shift and I can trim. So they're kind of interchangeable. So I'm going to trim back these parts here. So I want to trim that, and you click on the bits that you don't want to keep, like so. I then press enter to finish, and as you can see, that's all nicely trimmed. There's a little bit of detritus there that you can just select and delete, like so. Now I'm going to go back a few steps, and I'm going to undo back to where we were before when we started. I'm going to go back to the trim command, and when I go into the drawing area, can you see at the prompt there, there's a thing called select all. That means you just select all of the lines in the drawing, and they're all cutting edges. So if I press enter to confirm that, notice it takes me straight to the trim or shift select to extend prompt. I can now trim in exactly the same way, but there's no cutting edges. It's just using all the intersections I've got in my drawing, like so. Enter to finish, and again, I'll just erase those bits of detritus there. Just hit delete on the keyboard after I've selected them. So you can see I've got the same end result, but it was slightly quicker. No cutting edges needed to select that particular time. Now let's have a look at extend. We'll go onto the modify panel again and click on the flyout and select extend this time. So what I'm going to do is I want this to be an extension edge or boundary edge, and also this one here. And then I'm going to press enter to finish. Now you might think that that's a bit of a weird selection. Well, it's not, because what I can do is I can extend this one here out to that line there, and then I can extend this line here out to that line there. Enter to finish, and as you can see, I've extended those nice and neatly. This line can now be erased. I can just hit the delete key, and I've now got a nice simple rectangle that I've managed to get by trimming and extending. Now again, that's a really simple example of trimming and extending. And again, it might not be the same as the exam question you get in your certified professional exam. Again, I'm just getting you into the processes and the workflows of AutoCAD so that you can revise, review, and prepare for your exam. Once again, we're staying in our modifying objects.dwg file, and we're going to look at some other modify commands now. And those are going to be offset command and also our mirror command. Now, again, these are commands on the modify panel in the home tab on the ribbon. They're not available in like the shortcut menu, but you can type the commands if you want to. I'm just going to roll back one notch on the wheel of the mouse and zoom out slightly. The reason being is I want to be able to see this rectangle here, the white one on the outside. And I'm going to offset that by 1.5 unit. So if I go into the modify panel here, there's the offset command there. Now I'm going to click on offset like so, and it asks me to specify an offset distance. Now the offset distance I'm going to specify as 1.5 like so. Now the good thing about AutoCAD is I can then select the object I want to offset. That then highlights, and as I go inside or outside of that object, can you see it gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. Now make sure you go outside and offset by 1.5, click on the outside of the original shape, and that's your offset done, like so. So if I now press enter, that's finished, and I can close the offset command. Now, something that you can do is offset to the current layer. At the moment, it's using the source layer. So this line here that I've offset, this polyline, can actually be offset, and it's staying on the source layer. So this is also on the object layer. Let's undo that offset real quick. And what we'll do, we'll go to the offset command again, and it asks for an offset distance. But you'll notice on the command line, I can choose through, erase, or layer. Now, erase will erase the original object if I want it to. I don't want it to, but if I right-click, I can also go through, erase, or layer here. I'm going to select layer, and I'm going to select current this time. Now, at the moment, the current layer is object, so it will offset onto the white object layer. If I now hit escape once and change the current layer to something like hatching, or perhaps rectangle, let's say. Let's change it to rectangle. And then I go back to the offset command, and then I do the right click, and I just check on the layer settings here that I've got it set to current. Then I put in the offset distance of 1.5, enter, select the object I want to offset, which is this one, and then as I come out, can you see it's on the rectangle layer now, the red layer? I click outside, and I've got a red rectangle instead, and I press enter to finish like so. So that's your offset command. Now, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more now, And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to mirror all of this down the central vertical center line. Now the mirror command again is on the modify panel on the home tab on the ribbon. There it is there. There's the mirror command. Now again, you can type mirror if you wish. So I'll click on mirror. I'm going to select everything. So I'm going to click and drag a window over everything and click again and enter to confirm all the objects that I've selected. Now the first point of the mirror line is going to be the midpoint here. So select that midpoint, left click, and go to the midpoint here. Now make sure you get the midpoint like so and click again. Now it prompts you, do you want to erase the source objects? In this case, yes, I do, because I don't want two sides, if you see what I mean. I'm mirroring this and I want to keep the mirror. So if I say yes this time, can you see all the original objects have gone that were handed to the right, and now my circles are handed over to the left, my rectangle there is handed over to the left. If I'd said no to erasing the source objects, it would have kind of been all on top of each other. But you can see how that mirror command works, and it's really quick and easy as well. So what we've covered there is a little bit of offset, a little bit of mirror, and again it's allowing you to review the workflows and the processes in AutoCAD in preparation for your certified professional exam. Once again, we're staying in our modifying objects.dwg file, and as you can see, I've left it in the same state as it was at the end of the last video. I'm hoping that you're just saving the drawing each time and moving on to each video as we go through this chapter. We're going to have a look now at grip editing. So I'm going to zoom in on the green rectangle here. And the rectangle is made up of individual lines, as you can see. So if I hover, each one is an individual line segment. If I select one of the lines, you'll notice it's got three grips, one at each end and one on the midpoint of the line. So I can click on a grip now, like so, make it a hot grip, and I can drag this line anywhere I want it to go. So if I go to, say, the midpoint snap of the original line and hit escape to deselect the line, you can see I've halved the length of the line. So I can use grip editing to resize individual line segments. Just pan across a little bit now and maybe zoom in on the center circle of our little arrangement of circles here. If I click on this circle here, you'll notice that I've got grips there. If I click on one of the outer grips, I can resize the radius of the circle. So if I type in 1 there as the radius, makes the circle bigger, hit escape to deselect it. Now, obviously, if I come in again and select the circle and click on the grip here again and come in this way and type in 0.5 again, it resizes the circle back to its original size. If I use the center grip and click on it, I can drag the circle around and I can move it around and place it wherever I want it to go. I'll just hit escape this time just to deselect it. If I zoom out a little bit more now, you'll notice here as well, if I click here, that is a polyline, and you can see that I've got grips on each midpoint, like so. That's really useful. So let's just hit escape there a second and deselect the white rectangle I've just selected and zoom in on one of the smaller red ones. If I select that one there, and I click on that grip there and drag it to the right using polar tracking, give it a distance of, say, 0.5 and press enter, I've made that particular rectangle bigger by 0.5 by pulling it out to the right using the grips. Now, the grips are really, really useful like that. They're really handy. And they make my life so much easier because I can actually just resize in any of the 4 directions. So if I do 0.5 there as well, like that, also brings it out that way downwards as well. If I hit escape just to deselect it, you can see I've got a totally different rectangle to the original rectangle I had. Now, grip editing as well has a whole group of editing tools as well. So if I select this rectangle that I've been working on, click on the bottom right corner there, and if I right click, you'll notice that we've got some tools that are available that are grip specific. So I can stretch a vertex, add a vertex, or remove a vertex. A vertex is basically a corner or an intersection. So on that rectangle there, each of the vertices are the corners, or the other vertexes are those midpoint grips as well. I can also move about a grip, rotate, scale, or mirror around a grip. I can change the base point, or I can copy from a grip as well. So for example, if I did a move for this particular rectangle, can you see I'm moving it about that bottom right grip? Now, if I right click and select copy, it'll leave the original there. And if I just move over here to say there and click there, You'll see I've got a copy, enter to finish, hit escape to deselect, and it's done a move and a copy around those grips. So not only do you have the grips and the vertices that you can edit, you've also got all those editing tools available on the shortcut menu as well. So when you're working with your grips, they're like a little miniature editing suite is specific to an object and specific to the grip that you've selected on the object itself. Once again, we're staying in our modifying objects.dwg file, and we're going to have a look now at fillet and chamfer and how we add fillets and chamfers to our AutoCAD drawings. Just roll back on the wheel a few notches so that you can see that red rectangle that we created previously using the offset command, that one there. And we're going to add fillet radii to the top two corners of that red rectangle, and then some chamfers, some beveled edges to the bottom corners of that particular rectangle. Now, fillet and chamfer are on the Modify panel on the Home tab on the ribbon. They're just here on this little flyout here. So what we want is we want to fillet, first of all. You come into the drawing area and it prompts you to select your first object. Now, ideally, what you want to do is right-click and specify a radius first. So the radius will be 0.5. like so, and press enter. And then what we're going to do as well is right click again and select multiple, because we've got more than one fillet that we want to place. Then we select that line there and that line there. You'll see there's our fillet radius on the corner. Then that line there and that line there. There's our fillet radius on the top right corner. Enter to finish the command. Now let's go to the chamfer command again on the same flyout on the Modify panel. There's the chamfer command. And again, it's prompting us to select the first line. So we'll right click and we'll put a distance in. There's two methods, distance and angle this time. We're going to select distance first of all. First chamfer distance, 0.5. It remembers the distance and prompts you for the second chamfer distance with a default of 0.5. Just press enter to accept it. And we'll then right click again and go to multiple. And what we'll do this corner here first. So we'll go this line here, and there's our chamfer. And I'll just pan upwards a little bit, and we're going to go for this line here, and enter to finish. Now, I did mention that there's another method of chamfering, which is the angle method. Let's have a look at that. So I'm going to zoom in a bit now on one of the rectangles, doesn't matter which one of the smaller ones. I'm going to go back here to the flyout and select chamfer. I'm going to right click and select angle this time. So if I select angle, it's asking for a chamfer length on the first line. I'm going to make sure that's 0.5. And then I'm going to specify a chamfer angle of 60 degrees and then enter. Select the first line, that one there, and then that one there. Can you see there's the angle of 60 degrees with the 0.5 at the top. So you've just got to basically be aware of which line you select. So let's go back and do that again. So I'll go chamfer again. And what I can do now, I can right click and select method. Do I want distance or angle? I'm going to select angle. And again, it'll be 0.5 on this line with an angle of 60 degrees on this line. And as you can see, I've chamfered using the angle method on those two corners. Now, bear in mind, these are polylines. You can also fillet and chamfer using polylines as well. I'll just pan across a little bit, get these central on the screen. I'm going to go back now to my fillet command here on the flyout menu and select first object. I'm going to right click radius, make sure the radius is 0.5. It's remembered it from last time, so I can just press enter, or I can type in 0.5 if it's not 0.5. If I right click again now and select polyline, it'll actually fillet radius all of the corners like so. I can do the same with chamfer as well. If I come into chamfer here, and then what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll go method, and I want distance method this time. And what I'll do is right click again and go for distance, and we'll go 0.5, enter, and then enter again because it remembers the 0.5. And then it's a right click and polyline on the shortcut menu. If I select this one, as you can see, it's now chamfered to 0.5 all the way around. So that's how you utilize your fillet and your chamfer. Now, let me just zoom out here slightly. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually physically explode that polyline. So I'll go up to explode here in the Modify panel and explode it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete these lines here where I just chamfered it previously. So they're deleted. I've got two vertical lines, that one and that one. So what I can do now is if I go here to the fillet command and just select two parallel lines, that one and that one, it puts a fillet on the end. Do fillet again and select that one and that one. And as you can see, does a nice fillet radius on two vertical or horizontal parallel lines. And as long as they're parallel, it'll automatically work out the fillet radius for you. We're starting another chapter now in our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. And what we're going to look at are some additional drawing techniques that you may use when you're drafting in AutoCAD. Now, one of those is the tools around drawing and editing polylines. Now, you'll notice I've got a new drawing for you. It's called additional_polylines.dwg. Nice and easy to remember. You'll find it on the website to download as the exercise file to follow along with this particular video. Now you'll notice over here on the left-hand side of the drawing, I've got an arc and I've got some lines as well. Now it may be that I want to convert all of those elements to a single closed polyline. Now if I want to do that, I need to use the polyline edit command. Now if I go to the modify panel here on the ribbon in the home tab, you'll notice there's various polyline commands here, and it's this one here, edit polyline, or p-edit, as you can see there on the tooltip. Now, instead of doing that and clicking and finding it on the ribbon and finding it on the flyout on the modify panel, just type PE, and that is polyline edit. You can see it there on the suggestion menu. So just press enter and it will prompt you to select a polyline, or as you can see on the command line, multiple polylines. Select any line or arc in this shape. I'm going to pick on the arc itself. It now says, do I want to turn that arc into an individual polyline? Well, yes, I do. So I press enter there to accept the Y for yes. Then I use join on the polyline edit menu that comes up. So I click on join. I can select this line, and this line, and I can reselect the arc if I want to. It doesn't matter. AutoCAD knows that that's a duplicate. It's not going to affect the polyline edit command. So I'll just press enter now to confirm that. And it's made that into a single closed polyline. I press enter again to finish, job done, and as you can see when I hover over it now, it's a closed polyline. Now what happens if I want to draw a polyline similar to that? So let's have a look at that. Let's see how I can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm in essence going to start here. Can you see that crosshair where it is now? There's a line ending there that goes into that arc segment of the polyline. So I'm on the polyline layer here, like so. So make sure you use the polyline layer. And I'm going to go over here to the draw panel on the home tab on the ribbon and select polyline. Now I'm just going to come over here. To keep these nice and level, I'm going to hover on this endpoint here. And I'm just going to drag a little bit like that, like so. And then what I'm going to do is click and I can start my polyline there. Now what I can do here is utilize the polyline command and utilize the shortcut menu within the polyline command. Now the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use my polar tracking to go upwards like so, and I'm going to type in 85 and enter. So there's the first segment of my polyline, and as you can see, it's the same height as the vertical lines in the previous polyline where we use polyline edit. But how do I get that arc on the top? Can you see it's just a straight line right now? So I right click and I go to arc there on the shortcut menu. So now I can draw an arc as part of my polyline. Using the polar tracking, get it horizontal and dragging to the right like so on the 0 degrees. Now the distance I want there is going to be 65 like so. I want 65 as the diameter of that arc. So I now just press enter. And as you can see, it's drawn an arc, but now it tries to draw another arc segment, which I don't want. So I right click, I go to the line command part of the polyline command, and I'm back using a line segment. Now the good thing is I can utilize my object snap tracking now. I can hover there and I can hover there. Don't click, and then as I drag down, I get the intersection, click there, right click again, and close the polyline. And what I've done there is I've drawn a polyline that is exactly the same as this polyline. So that's how you utilize Polyline Edit to edit and create polylines from existing line and arc segments, and that's how you draw a polyline with its own line and arc segments using the polyline command. We're starting another drawing now in our additional drawing tools chapter. Now the drawing is called additional_blend.dwg. And basically we're going to look at how we can blend two splines together in AutoCAD. Now you can download the file as usual from the website and use it as the exercise file to follow along with the video. Now before we actually put the blend in between these two splines that we've got in this AutoCAD drawing, what I'd like you to do is go up to your Layers panel on the Home tab, click on the flyout and select the layer Blends. Now the reason I want you to do that is so that you can see where this blend goes, so it's a different colour. It's green instead of red. Now the blend command is really easy. I always just type it. So I just type blend, like so. And you can see it pops up there on the suggestion menu. So just select blend on the suggestion menu. And it's really quick and easy. Now you'll notice on the command line there is a continuity option. So if I right click on that and go to continuity first, I can either have a continuity that is either tangential or smooth. So what that means is that you can change the way that the splines join together. I normally tend to use tangential because the whole idea is you want a tangent to join these curves together so they kind of move nice and smoothly between each other. But we can have a look at both. So we're using tangential now, and then we'll go back and we'll use smooth as well. So the continuity right now is tangent. So I select my first spline and I select my second spline. You can see the highlight there and there's the blend. And tangentially, it all curves in nicely. So that's using the tangent continuity. What I'm going to do now is undo that. And I'm going to stay on the blends layer. And I'm going to type blend again, like so. Press enter just to accept blend. Now before I do the select first object, I'll right click and go to continuity. And I'll select smooth this time. Select first object, select second object, like so. And can you see the blend is slightly different? It doesn't look much different, but it is slightly different. And the reason being is sometimes you get weird and wonderful splines, different curves, different angles, different control points. And the whole idea of these blends is that it joins them neatly together so that the curve follows through from one end to the other. So that's how you utilize the blend command in AutoCAD with the different continuities, tangent or smooth, so that you get a nice smooth transition between two individual splines in an AutoCAD drawing. Another additional drafting tool that you might use in AutoCAD is the hatch and gradient facility. Now I've got a new drawing open for you again to use. It's called additional_hatch gradient. You can download it from the website to use as the exercise file for this video. Now you'll notice that we've got a little bracket there, and you can see that's a side view and this is a sectional view. Now normally you would use something like hatching or cross hatching to highlight where you've cut a section through a particular object. So this is the sectional view on the right. So make sure you're using the hatch layer here in the layers panel in the home tab on the ribbon. The hatch command itself is in the draw panel, and I click on the flyout here and select hatch. Now, as soon as I do that, you'll notice the ribbon changes, and I've got the Hatch Creation contextual tab up there on the ribbon. Now, I need to select a hatch pattern. I'm going to go for this ANSI 31, just the regular crosshatch. There's lots of different hatches available, as you can see. I'm going to go for ANSI 31. Now, if I hover over here, you can see it almost looks solid. There's a very, very fine, grainy effect there. What that means is the hatch scale is a little bit too small. So I go up to the Properties panel here in the Hatch Creation tab, click inside the scale box, let's make that say 10, and press Enter. Now, when I hover, I get my preview, and that's a perfect hatch. I might even make that a little bit smaller, actually, maybe 5, and then press Enter, and there you go. There's a nice hatch there. I'll put it in there. I'll also put it in there as well. Enter to finish, and using the Pick Points option, it automatically finds the hatch boundaries for me, and my section now looks nice and neat and tidy. Now what I might want to do there is possibly put a solid fill underneath that to highlight it even more. However, what we're going to do is look at the left-hand view, the side view, and we're going to use what is called a gradient fill. Now, I'm going to go back to the Draw panel here and click on the flyout and select Gradient this time. Now, you'll notice that the gradients give me a choice of two colours. So what I can do now in the pattern is I can pick the pattern of the two colours that I want to use. Now, I don't mind which one I'm going to use here. It really doesn't matter. But I think this linear one will probably serve a purpose for me, that one there. Now, you'll notice that the colours by default are blue and yellow. Now, the thing is, the colours here will always show, regardless of what colour the hatch layer is that you might be using. So I'm going to change the colours here. I'm going to go to the blue drop down there, and I'm going to go for a dark grey. And then the second colour, I'm going to go for a reddy pinky colour. That's salmon colour there. And now when I hover, can you see I will actually get a nice sort of salmon pink. It's actually a little bit too bright, in fact. So what I'll do is I'll change this. I'll go for maybe a bluey kind of colour. And can you see I get a nice metallic kind of gradient fill going on there. Now if I change the pattern, for example, here, let's go for something like curved. If I go there and hover now, can you see it almost acts as if it's got a curve on top of it? And if I click there now, it applies that particular gradient fill. I'll close the hatch creation here by clicking on Close Hatch Creation on the ribbon, and I've got a nice gradient fill, which makes that look a lot more realistic on the side view. And as you can see, the sectional view gives me that lovely cross hatch so that everything highlights where it's actually cutting through in the sectional view of that particular bracket. So that's how you can utilize your hatch and your gradient settings when you're working in your AutoCAD drawings. We're starting another chapter now in AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. And what we're going to look at now is organizing our objects in our AutoCAD drawings. Now again, this is the sort of topic that would come up in your Certified Professional exam. It's not an exact exam question or anything of the sort, but what it does is it takes you through the workflow and the processes that you may require to revise, review, and prepare for your certification exam. So we're looking at organizing our objects in our AutoCAD drawings. So I've got a new drawing for you. It's called organizing_properties.dwg. And the whole idea of this particular drawing is we're going to look at how we organize the properties of objects within AutoCAD itself. So you can see we've got a little view there, a little side view, and we've got some dimensions as well. Now it may be when you're organizing the properties of objects in an AutoCAD drawing that you do it by object or you do it by layer. It does depend. Now if you're organizing the properties of, say, the dimensions here, you might want these to go on a particular layer, such as the dimensions layer. So if I select my 3 dimensions like so, I can organize the properties of them by changing their layer. That's changing their properties. So if I go up here to the layer pull down now and select dims, you can see they go onto the dims layer. And if I hit escape to deselect, they've changed color. Now they've changed color, and that's the property that has changed, the color of the objects. But that's because the dims layer has a red color associated with it. Now it may be that these objects here, you'll notice, are all on layer 0. Now they all look the same, but they represent different things. Now what I could do is I could go and put them all on different layers, different colors, and layers that have different colors and different line types. But I can do it individually by property that is loaded into this particular drawing. So this line here is on layer 0 and it's our center line. So instead of perhaps putting it on a centerline layer, I might go to the Properties panel here in the Home tab on the ribbon, and I might change the color. Let's say I want that to be a purple color, like so. You'll see the color changes when I hit Escape to deselect. If I select that center line again, and perhaps change the line type of it as well to a center line type. If I do that and I hit Escape, that now has a center line type associated with it. Now, if I select it now, can you see that it has the center line type, but there's no dashes? So if I want to change the properties of that, perhaps change the line type scale. So if I now right click and go to Properties on the shortcut menu, you'll see that the line type scale of that particular line is 1 at the moment. Let's change that to, say, 5 and press Enter. And what will happen now is it's changed the scale of that particular line type to a line type scale of 5. Let's just put the properties over here to the right a little bit, and I'll just hit Escape to deselect. It doesn't look any different. That's probably because I've scaled it the wrong way. So let's select it again, and I'll change the line type scale this time to, say, 0.2, a fifth rather than 5 times. When I do that, you'll notice that I now actually get on screen a visual of that centerline line type. So when I close the properties, hit Escape, it now looks like a centerline. However, if I hover over it, you'll notice it's still on layer 0 because I'm changing the properties of the line, not the layer of the line. So what I could do here as well, I might change this particular polyline. I want it to stay on layer 0, but I might give it a different color. Let's go for, say, orange. So it changes its color like so, hit Escape to deselect, and it's still using a continuous line type there, which is fine, but you can see the colors changed, but it stayed on layer 0. And then these two lines here are meant to be hidden detail. So what I'll do is I'll change the line type property to hidden, and they go dashed, and then I might give them a different color, let's say green, like so, hit Escape to deselect, and now you can see I've changed all of the properties of all of the objects in that drawing into different colors. Now, the different colors don't define the layer. That's also on layer 0, but it's got a different color, different line type. However, here, what I've done here is they're adopting the color by layer because they're on the layer dims. They're not on layer 0. So that's how you can change all of your properties in your AutoCAD drawings using the properties palette, and also perhaps changing the layer as well of an object to give it different properties that are adopted with the by layer setting. The normal way in which you would control and organize your objects in an AutoCAD drawing is by way of utilizing the layers in your drawing. So we've got a new drawing for you here. It's called organizing_altering layers.dwg. Now the reason it's called altering layers is because everything on this drawing right now is on the default layer, layer 0. And it all looks the same. It is. It's all white and it's using a continuous line type. Now, ideally, you want to change all of this and change it up so that the different layers have different line types, different colors, and so on. And they're all set by way of objects to the by layer setting. I'll come back to the by layer setting in a moment. Let's get everything on the right layers first. So if you go to the Home tab on the ribbon and look at your layer pull down here, you can see that we've got center lines, depth points, dims, hidden, and object. Now, all of those layers are available in this particular drawing. So what we need to do is put the objects onto those layers and alter the layers. So I'm going to hit Escape now, and if I hover over that dimension there, you can see it's on layer 0. If I hover over this dimension, it's also on layer 0, as is this one here. So ideally, they want to be on the dims layer. So you select each of them, like so, like we did in the previous video, where we were making changes to the properties. One of the properties, obviously, is the layer which an object is on. So if I select the pull down now and select dims, they go onto the dims layer. Hit Escape to deselect. Now the outline here needs to go onto the objects layer, not layer 0. So I'll select that, go to the pull down, go to object. That goes onto that nice yellow layer. When I hit Escape, it's nice and bright and yellow. These are hidden detail lines, so I'll select both of those. And again, layer pull down, put those on the hidden layer, and hit Escape to deselect. Now, if I select the center line here, that needs to go on the center line layer, which is right there, like so. It's also red to tie in with the extension lines of the dimensions. But you'll notice it looks like one continuous line. Now, I said I was going to come back to that by layer setting. If I go and look at the properties panel now with my center line selected, can you see by layer it should be using a center line type? So if I just hit Escape there a second to deselect it and jump into my layer properties, you can see here that center lines are using a center line type. So why is it showing as a continuous line? Well, if I close the layer properties manager, you'll remember in the previous video, we looked at the line type scale. Now this affects things like dashed lines in your drawing. So if I select that one particular line and I right click and I go to Properties, and I change the line type scale to 0.2 like I did in the previous video, and press enter, you'll see that we now have a visual of the centerline line type there. So if I close the properties, hit escape, everything is now on its appropriate layer, and it's all using the by layer setting. So if I hover over this dimension and click on it, you'll see in the properties, the color is by layer from the DIMS layer. The line weight is also by layer from the DIMS layer, and the line type is also by layer from the DIMS layer. If I hit escape to deselect and select, let's say, a hidden detail line, you can see that it's green by layer. As you can see, line weight is by layer, and also there by layer is the line type, which is the hidden line type. So if I go into my layer properties here, you can see that hidden is using the green, and it's a hidden line type, and it's using the default line weight. So you can see that if you control everything by altering your layers, that drawing there is much, much easier to interpret than, say, if everything was just on layer 0. We're staying in the Organising Our Objects chapter of our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. Now, we've got another new drawing for you now. It's called organising_layer_visibility.dwg. Again, you can download it from the website as one of the exercise files, and you can use that exercise file to follow along with this particular video. Now you'll notice in this particular case in the drawing, everything is on the appropriate layer. So if I hover over a dimension here, you can see it's on the DIMS layer. If I hover over the center line, you'll notice it's on the center lines layer. The hidden detail, again, is on the hidden layer, and also the object itself is on the object layer. Now, why do you have layers in your AutoCAD drawings? So that you can clarify the drawing and make it simpler and easier to interpret to work on the design. So, for example, it may be that the dimensions are getting in the way and you need to either freeze them or switch them off. Now, there's two options to turn layers off in AutoCAD drawings. You can freeze them or you can turn them off. There is a difference between the two. If you're using a very complicated drawing with lots and lots of layers, it will take a long time to regenerate and actually open as a file. So what you want to do there is freeze the layers you don't need to see. Then they will not be considered when the drawing is opened again, which means the drawing will open quicker. If you just switch the layers off, they will still be considered when you open the drawing, and it'll open in exactly the same amount of time as it would even if those layers were on instead of off. So how do I turn layers off and on and freeze and thaw them? Well, it's very easy. I go to the Layers panel on the Home tab on the ribbon. I can do it in two ways. So for example, if I go to the Layer pull down here, you'll notice that there's the DIMS layer there, and I've got the option there of switching it on or off, or freezing or thawing it. So if I switch them off, they disappear. Switch them on, they come back. If I freeze them, they disappear. If I thaw them out, they come back. So you'll notice on and off is a light bulb, freeze and thaw is a sun and a snowflake. Kind of corresponds to what the actual descriptions of the commands are. So I can do it that way if I want to. If I hit escape there just to lose that menu, I can also go to layer properties, and you'll notice I can do them on and off and freeze and thaw them in here as well. So you'll notice if I go to DIMS here and I switch them off or say freeze them, let's freeze them and turn them into a snowflake, close the layer properties manager, and you can see that they're not in the drawing anymore. If I go to the layer drop down here, you can see that they're frozen. There's the snowflake. Click on the snowflake, turns back into a sun symbol, and the dimensions are now thawed out and back in the drawing again. And I'll just hit escape there to lose the drop down menu. So you can see there how quick and easy it is to control your layer visibility in your AutoCAD drawings. Now there's one more setting, and it's in your layer properties. If I go here like so, you'll notice there's a thing called transparency here, and it changes the transparency for the entire drawing with these layers. So if I go to the object layer and click here, I can actually change the value of the layer, the transparency of the layer. So when it's on top of something else, it's actually transparent. Right now, 0 means that it's not transparent. But if I change that to, say, 90, it'll be transparent to a point whereby there's a little bit of transparency there and you can see objects through it. I'm going to set that back to 0 now, just to be on the safe side and OK it. But the idea being is that transparency is when you're using things like solid fills, hatches and so on, you can actually have them transparent and one on top of the other and see through things so that you can see detail behind another detail. But that's how you control your layer visibility in your AutoCAD drawings. Now again, as I've stressed in previous videos, this is not an exam example. What it's doing is it's getting you working through the workflows and the processes of AutoCAD in preparation for your certified professional exam. We're in a new drawing now called organizing_assigning props.dwg. And you can see that it's a very similar drawing to what we've used previously. And what we're going to look at is how we assign properties to individual objects in an AutoCAD drawing. Now that can be by layer. It can also be individually by object, where we change the properties of individual objects. Now, if we're going to assign properties of, say, the dimensions, what we might do is we might change the color of the dimensions layer. Because our dimensions, if I select this one here, you'll see are on the DIMS layer. So when I go to the Properties panel on the Home tab on the ribbon, all the settings are by layer. So color, line weight, line type are all assigned by the DIMS layer. So let's say I want to change the color of my dimensions. I'll just hit escape there to deselect, obviously, that dimension. I'll go into layer properties here in the layers panel, and there's my DIMS layer there. So if I want to assign a different property, let's say the color of that layer, I'll click there and I'll change it to, say, a purple color. Let's go for a nice leery bright purple. I'll OK that there. And what I'll do now is I'll close the layer properties manager, and because it's by layer, it's adopted that property immediately. So I've assigned a different color property to the layer that the dimensions are on. Now that's doing it by layer with that by layer setting. What happens if I want to do that individually to individual objects? So let's look at the outline of the object itself here. At the moment, that's a yellow color. And as you can see in the properties here, by layer, the color is yellow. The line type is by layer and the line weight is by layer as well. Let's say I want that to be a different color. If I go here and click on the by layer setting, I can change it to a different color. Let's say we're going to go for that sort of salmon pink color there. If I hit escape now, you can see the color has changed in the drawing, but if I hover over it, you can see the layer hasn't changed. It's still on the object layer, but it's not using the color by layer. So you can see there it's got its own individual color and it's not using the by layer setting. So if I change that back now to by layer, you'll see it's yellow and it goes back to the yellow color on the object layer. So if I hit escape to deselect, it's back to the yellow color. Now I can do that with things like line weight and also line type. The hidden detail, for example, here is using a hidden line type and it's by layer. Let's say I change that to continuous, for example, and I hit escape now to deselect. You can see that it's using its own continuous line type, but it's still on the hidden layer. If I go into layer properties, you'll see that the hidden layer here is still using the hidden line type. So because I'm not using the by layer setting and using an individual object setting of continuous, the line type is continuous. So I'll close the layer properties manager and I'll select my two hidden detail lines again. And what I'll do is I'll put them back to by layer and they adopt the appropriate line type again. So I'll just hit escape there to deselect. What I can also do now is if I want to change the color of my DIMS back to red, I don't have to go into layer properties. I can go to the layer drop down and I can select here the color box next to the word DIMS and I'll change that back to, say, color 10, which it was before. And what I'll do is I'll click on OK and it updates the color for me in the AutoCAD drawing. So as you can see, you can assign properties by layer using the layer, color, line weight, line type, or you can do it individually on an object by object instead of adopting the properties of the layer the object is on. We're in a new drawing now and it's called organizing_layer props.dwg. As usual, you can download it from the website as an exercise file to use it to follow along with this particular video. Now, what we're going to look at this time is changing and organizing the properties of our objects via layers only. So we're going to open up the Layer Properties Manager. That's in the Layers panel here in the Home tab on the ribbon. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to drag this across a little. And then what I'll do as well is close it first. Let's be sensible here. I'll zoom out a tiny bit and pan that across because I want you to be able to see all of the layer properties as they change. Now, the benefit you've got in the Layer Properties Manager where you're editing the properties of the layers is they're all in a list and it's all tabulated like so. Now, I might want to change the color of the layers for the center lines and the dimensions, but they need to be consistent. They're both color 10, so they need to be the same color. So I click there. I'm going to give that color 200 there, like so. And then I'll go to my dims as well. I also want that to be color 200 as well. And I'll change that. And you can see that change on the screen automatically there. Now, obviously, you can change things like line types as well. So you've got my hidden layer there, for example. So if I click there, I want to change that to perhaps the center line type. I wouldn't normally, but I'll OK it there. And you'll see it looks continuous. Now, the reason it looks continuous is because we need to edit the LT scale. You may remember that from previous videos in the chapter. So I'll close the Layer Properties Manager now. And what I'll do, I'll pan across and I'll zoom in a little. And what I need to do is select these two here and change the properties of them, the object properties. So now I'll right click and go to Properties here. And I'll change that line type scale to 0.2 like we did for the center lines. And as you can see there, it updates. Hit escape to deselect there. And you can see that it's updated and it's using that center line type now. But we're controlling that by way of the layers. So if I go and hover over that, you can see that it's on the hidden layer, but the color and the line type are by layer as well. So what I'll do now is I'll close the Properties palette. And what I can do is I can go back into my Layer Properties Manager now. Let's change all of these back to their original colors. So center lines are going to go back on color 10, like so. And the dims as well, they need to go back onto color 10 as well. So color 10 is just up here, like that. And then the hidden layer, we're going to change that back to the hidden line type, like so, and I'll OK that. And then what I'll do is I'll close the Layer Properties Manager. Now, what you'll notice is those dashed lines of the hidden detail are very, very small. You'll remember we changed the line type scale as well. So what I'm going to do now is select both of those and we'll right click and we'll go to Properties again. And they're still with a line type scale of 0.2. I'll change that to 1 and press enter. And you can see they've got the nice dashes back that they had previously. Close the Properties palette and hit escape to deselect. So you can see there that you can change the properties of the layers as well. And that will allow you to organize your objects in your drawing differently than if you were changing the properties individually by object. We're starting another chapter now in our AutoCAD Certified Professional Prep course. And what we're going to look at is reusing design content. So basically reusing data that we've got in existing drawings to perhaps reuse in the existing drawing or perhaps a new drawing. To do that, we're going to look at using AutoCAD blocks and AutoCAD external reference files or XREFs. In this particular drawing, which is called reusing_blocks.dwg, we're going to look at creating an AutoCAD block. You can download the drawing file as usual from the website to use as an exercise file to follow along with the video. So what we've got is a simple drawing in front of us, and you can see there that we have a rectangle and a couple of lines there using the hidden line type. Now the hidden line type there denotes a hole through this little object, which we're going to call a sleeve. And the sleeve is going to fit onto a shaft at some point in perhaps some mechanical assembly. Now you'll notice we've got some layers here in the layer drop down in the layers panel. We've got things like center lines, dimensions, hidden object. Make sure you're using the sleeve layer. Now you'll notice that the objects are actually drawn on layer 0. So there's a polyline there on layer 0 and these are lines on layer 0. When you're creating a block, it's normally a good idea to have all the elements of the block on layer 0. Then when you create that block, it automatically adopts the properties of the current drafting layer when you insert it into any AutoCAD drawing. So how do we make our sleeve block? Well, the best way to do it is to use the block panel here on the Home tab on the ribbon, or if you go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, you'll notice you've got block and block definition. So we can create our block here as well if we want to. Now, if I go back to the Home tab on the ribbon in the block panel here, you'll also notice here we've got Create Block as well. So I can go to either of those and it'll open up the block definition dialog box. I'm just going to call this sleeve, like so. Very basic, very simple. Then it's prompting us to set up a base point and to specify that on the screen. Now, before we do that, let's just make sure that we select our objects. So I'm going to select the rectangle and the 2 lines like so. Make sure they're selected, enter to finish. So you can see there that we've got 3 objects selected. Now, it says here base point specify on screen. I don't want to do that. I want a base point already set up and ready to go here. So I'm going to go pick point. And the point that I want is this midpoint snap here at the top of the sleeve. That's where the block will be inserted into the drawing. Now, we've already selected the objects, but we need to decide on what those objects are going to do. Are we going to retain them as original objects, or are we going to convert them to a block, or are we going to delete them? We're going to convert them to a block. The behavior, it's not going to be annotative, but you do want to scale it uniformly in the X and Y direction. So make sure the box is ticked, and always allow exploding with your blocks. That way you can explode them, rejig them, revise them a little bit, and then obviously save them as a different block, a new block perhaps. So always allow exploding as well. You can put a text description in there if you want to. So this might be something like a mechanical sleeve, for example. So that's just a text description, and you can obviously bring that information into things like AutoCAD tables and so on. So once we've got all of that in place, when I click on OK, what you'll find is that has changed color, but it's also changed its properties to become a block. As you can see, it's a block reference now on the layer sleeve. Because it was on the layer 0 when it was created, it's adopted the current sleeve layer. Now, if I select that, there's the insertion point as a grip, and I can move that around if I want to using grip editing tools. And if I right click and go to properties and bring up the properties palette, you'll notice that there's the by layer, there's the layer sleeve. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see there's the name of the block, sleeve. It's got a rotation of 0, which means it's horizontal. It's not annotative, and the block unit is millimeters. That's all the things that we had in that dialog box when we created the block. So I'll just close the properties now, hit escape to deselect, and that's how you create a simple AutoCAD block. We're starting another drawing now called reusing_attributes.dwg. Now, in the previous video, we looked at creating a simple AutoCAD block called a sleeve, and that was going to sit on top of a shaft in a mechanical assembly. Now, we've got the same sleeve ready to be turned into a block here, but you'll notice that we've got a piece of text next to it that says SL_name, sleeve name. Now, that is an attribute. Now, let's have a look at that. If I hover over that, you'll see that it's an attribute definition, and again, it's on layer 0. When you're creating AutoCAD blocks, you can assign attributes to those blocks, which gives information about the block. So in this case, it's the sleeve name. So it might have a specific name in the mechanical assembly that it's going into. Now you'll notice that the current layer again is sleeve. And when we turn this into a block, it'll adopt that current layer like it did in the previous video. Before we do that though, let's add another attribute definition to the block before we convert it all into a block. So to do that, we need to be on layer 0, first of all. So we will need to change our layer initially. We're then going to go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, and you'll see here that we've got Define Attributes in the Block Definition panel. So I click on Define Attributes, and you can see that there's various bits of information that we need to use here. So we could have an invisible attribute, which doesn't show on the drawing when you insert the block. You've got things like constant attributes that won't change, verify attributes where you have to verify the information, and so on. So there's lots of different settings you can use. All I want to do is lock the position of the attribute next to the block, next to the sleeve. and we're going to specify the insertion point on screen. Now the tag itself is going to be the sleeve number, so I'm going to put SL underscore NO, sleeve number, and then the prompt here, when you're prompted to put the attribute in, will be sleeve number, like that. And the default there, we might put something like SL underscore NO. Now that's just text that is a default value for the attribute tag. Bear in mind, attribute tags cannot have spaces, by the way, as well. So justification, we're going to go to the left. We've got a text style already built into the drawing called attributes that we're using. Text height will be 10, rotation 0. So as soon as I click on OK now, you'll see there's my attribute definition. Now I want it to line up with this one. So how do I get it to line up? Well, what we'll do is we'll do a shift and a right click, and we'll go insert, and then we'll just hover over that insertion point, and we can specify it there on top of that one. So if I do that, we can specify it on top of that one, or I could line it in if I want to. So I could, for example, use something like object snap tracking. I could use a sacrificial line that I then delete before I create the block. What I am going to do is I'm just going to hover over that insertion point there and click. Now that puts it on top of the other attribute, but then what I can do is I can select it there, click on the grip, and just drag that up using the polar tracking. And I know that that lines up nice and neatly and it's all left justified. So I'm just going to drag that up a little bit there. It doesn't matter what distance. I'll just hit escape to deselect it. So I've now got my sleeve with my outline and my dash lines and my two attributes ready to be converted into a block. So I go back to the Home tab, make sure that you change that layer back to sleeve so that it adopts the current drafting layer. Remember, all blocks created on layer 0 adopt that current drafting layer. So now I can go back to the block panel here on the Home tab on the ribbon, click on Create Block, and I'll just type in here, I'll give it the same name as the previous video, sleeve, like so. And I'm going to pick the point where I want the sleeve to be inserted, so I'll use the same point as before, that midpoint snap there. I'll select the objects, like we did in the previous video, but make sure you also include the attribute definitions. Enter to confirm. So we should now have 5 objects. So we've got the rectangle, the 2 dash lines, and the 2 attributes. It doesn't have to be annotative. We will scale uniformly, and we will allow exploding. And what we might do there is put mechanical sleeve in the description again. So there's our mechanical sleeve description as well. I'll click on OK. And you'll see now, as soon as I click on OK, it's prompting me now for the attributes. So I'm going to put the sleeve number in. So we'll say it's SL underscore 256, just for argument's sake. And the sleeve name might be SL top. So we'll underscore that and we'll put top in there, something like that. Again, don't worry too much about what the attribute values are. I'll click on OK, and you'll see that those values come in. If you double click on the block now, you can edit those using the enhanced attribute editor. Because it's a block, you can't edit its physical attributes, but you can edit its block attributes. So you can see there that I can change the sleeve number, I can change the sleeve name. What I can also do is in the text options, I might change the colors or the properties, for example. So I can do that because the color at the moment is by layer. So that's my tag for sleeve name. I change that to say red and I OK that. You'll see it goes red and you can differentiate it from the number of the sleeve perhaps. Or you might want the number of the sleeve to change. So you double click again, there's sleeve number, go to properties, we'll make that say a blue color. So let's go for cyan, for example, I OK that. And now you can distinguish the 2 attributes from the block, but they're still inside the block. So as you can see, when you're reusing design content, you can create blocks and give those blocks information using your attribute definitions. We're now going to start taking a look at reference drawings, or XREFs as they're known, external reference drawings. The abbreviation for that is XREF, and it tends to be used very commonly in the AutoCAD community. Now you'll notice I've actually got 2 drawings open this time, both of which you can download from the website and use as exercise files for this particular video. Make sure that you store them in the same folder so that you can use the relative file path when you're bringing the reference drawing into the host drawing. So we've got reusing underscore XREFs open at the moment. That's the host drawing. The XREF shaft drawing is going to be the reference drawing that we bring into the reusing XREFs drawing. So the shaft basically will come into this drawing and become part of the assembly by sitting inside the sleeve there. Now, how do we reference in one drawing into another? Well, we go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, we go to the Reference panel, and we click on Attach there. And you can see that goes to the folder where all my drawings are for this particular chapter. There's the XREF shaft drawing there. You can ignore all these DWL files. Basically, they're telling me that those files are already open and are locked. So if I tried to open those at the moment, it would prompt me only to open a read-only version of the file. There's XREF shaft there. A little preview of it there as well. Click on Open. And I now get the Attach External Reference dialog box. Notice the path type is Relative Path. If your two files are in the same folder, that's fine, and it will find the file quickly and easily. That's the best way to do it. Or you can go and browse for a file, as you can see up here. Now the scale itself, I'm going to leave all of that as 1, and it's a uniform scale, so I can tick that box. And insertion point, we're going to leave unticked. We're going to utilize 0, 0, and 0 for the X, Y, and Z values. Now I've deliberately done that for you. Basically, the point where this XREF shaft drawing comes in is 80, 150. And what I've done is I've located the sleeve at 80, 150 as well. So they're both sharing the same coordinate value, which means you can insert this particular reference file at 0, 0, and you know that everything will fit together. It's a fairly common practice with XREFs to make sure that when you bring a reference file in, it's utilizing the same coordinate settings as the host drawing. Now, we don't need to worry about rotating it, so we leave the angle at 0, and the block unit will be millimeters. Everything in these two drawings is in metric millimeters. So I'll click on OK now, and as you can see, if I just zoom out slightly, there's my shaft sitting nicely inside the mechanical sleeve. If I click on it, like so, you'll see there that I get a very different tab up on the ribbon there saying External Reference, XREF, and it allows me to edit the reference in place, open the reference. I can also create clipping boundaries only to show certain parts of the reference, and if I go to the External References dialog box, you can see that the XREF shaft drawing is loaded into the host drawing, the reusing XREF drawing. And I've got options there that I can use with that particular reference file. I can unload it, reload it, detach it, bind it, and so on. If I unload it, it still remains attached, and then I reload it again. Sometimes you might unload it, work on the shaft drawing, and then reload it so that it looks different, for example. Detaching removes it completely. Binding actually binds the XREF to the host drawing, making it one drawing. And then you can also change the XREF type, change the path type, select a new path, or perhaps even find and replace using a different XREF drawing. So there's lots of different tools there available. I'll just close the External References palette there, and it takes us back into the drawing. I'll hit Escape now just to deselect the reference file, and you can see that's how you use your XREFs to reuse design content when you're working in your AutoCAD drawings. We're starting a new chapter now in our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course, and we're going to have a look now at annotating our drawings. We've got a new drawing for you to use. It's called annotating_house.dwg. You can download it from the website as usual, and we're going to use the drawing all the way through the videos in this chapter. So just make sure that you download the drawing to a suitable location, and then just save it each time you finish a video and then work on to the next video. I'm going to zoom in on this area here, which is the living room, and we're going to look at placing some multi-line and single-line text. Make sure you're on the text layer, lots of layers in this drawing, so make sure you select text, obviously, because we're placing text in the drawing itself, which is part of the annotating in AutoCAD. Just make sure that your annotation scale down here is set to 1:1, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're using the right text style. So go to the Home tab on the ribbon, into the Annotation panel, and click on the flyout. Click here where it says HVMO, and you'll see there's lots of different text styles available. Make sure you select HVMO. That's the text style we're going to use. I'm then going to go here, click on the down arrow, and select single line text. It's asking for the start point of the text. So I'm going to pick over here. Now you can justify your text if you wish. So I could right click and go to justify, and I could select something like MC, middle center there, and that will now ask me to specify the middle point of the text instead. So I'll pick a point, say there, and click, like so. Now it's asking me to specify the height of the text itself. Now the text you need to specify here is the height of the text in real space size. So this is a drawing that's in imperial inches and feet. So you can see there that the default is 9 inches, which is probably going to be okay in this particular case. You might want to make it 12 inches or 1 foot. If you do want to specify a height, you type it in, and I'll just do 1 foot there, for example, 12 inches, and press enter. Then it asks for the rotation angle of the single line text, so I press enter again for 0 because I want it to be horizontal, and there's my little flashing cursor there letting me know that I can start typing. So this is the living room, so I'm going to put this in capitals, like so, living room, and then I press enter once. That will take me down to the next line of single line text if I need it, which I don't, and then I'm going to press enter again, and that closes out the single line text. If I want to edit single line text, I just double click on it, it highlights, I then select the bit I want to change, so I might change that to DD, something like that, and then change it back to RO. As you can see, I then click away from the text and enter to close out the command. So that's my single line text in place. What about multi-line text? So again, I click on the flyout and I go for multi-line text. This time I need to specify the area of the text. So I'm going to click once here and drag across here to get the text into that box there. Still get a flashing cursor, but you'll notice that the ribbon changes this time and goes into the text editor. Multi-line text is much more like something like Microsoft Word, so there's lots of tools for styling, formatting, paragraphs, and so on. So what I'm going to do now is just put a little sort of phrase here which is carpeted to specification, and as I start typing you'll see that because the text doesn't fit exactly in the box, it actually kind of rolls it down to the next line and works like a word processor does. So if I now click away from the text, that places that text, and just like single line text, I hover over it, highlight it, double click on it, and it opens up the text editor again. Now the nice thing is I can go in and edit the text in here if I want to, just like I can single line text. I can change the color, the font, and so on. I'm going to click away from it and just click once on the text. You'll see these arrows. If I click on this arrow here and drag the column width, I can actually get that carpeted to specification to fill one line. Hit escape to deselect. Now, as you can see, that text is too big. So what I might want to do here is change the height of this text. So what I'll do is I'll double click on it, go into the editor and highlight the text itself like so. And then what I can do is I can change the height of the text here to maybe, let's say 9 inches. Can you see it's a bit smaller? Or I could go to 1/4 of an inch, which is way too small. But 9 inches is pretty much perfect. So I'll click on it there like so. Now, the justification of the text needs to be changed as well. It's not middle centered right now. So I go to justification in the paragraph panel and say I want that middle center as well, like so. And as you can see, it middle centers in the box that I specified when I stretched the column size. Click away from the text and you'll see it doesn't line up anymore. But here's the trick. What I can do is put a little quick sacrificial line in, and I'll do a shift and a right click, and I'll go insert here. And the insertion point of my single line text is just up here. Can you see when I hover over it? It's just there. So I can take a vertical line down like so, and then enter to finish. And then what I can do here is I click there, click on that grip, pop it on the end point there like so, and then just hit escape to deselect. I now know that those two middle center justifications line up. I delete the line, and now all I've got to do is click here, click on the grip and just move that vertically up using my polar tracking, click there and hit escape to deselect, and it's all nice and neatly centered. So that's how you add and modify your text, both single line text and multi-line text, in an AutoCAD drawing. Another thing you can do when you're annotating your drawings is add dimensions. So we're staying in our annotating house.dwg file, and as per the previous video, you can still see the text that we placed in the previous video. So I'm going to zoom out a bit now, and I'm going to pan, and I'm going to look at this top left part of the house, where you can see the windows there on the corner of the building. What I'm going to do is in the Layers panel, I'm going to click on the Layer drop down here and start using the Dimensions layer to make sure that we're using the right layer for the right objects in the drawing. In the Home tab on the ribbon, I'm going to go to the Annotation panel and click on the flyout again. And I'm going to make sure that I'm using the architectural dimension style. Now, there are a number of them there. Make sure you use architectural. That's the one I'd like you to use for this particular video. Now, you can see there it had a little blue symbol next to it. That means it's an annotative dimension style. Now, you would normally make your dimensions annotative. And what that allows you to do is to jump into something like the Layout tab, desized here. And what you can do is you can specify a scale that corresponds to the viewport. So if I click on this viewport here and look at the status bar, it's at 1 to 50. So what I can do is hit Escape now and deselect that and go back to the Model tab and change my annotation scale here to 1 to 50. That means that any annotative dimensions that I place will adhere to that 1 to 50 scaling, both in the model space and in the Layout tab, and it just maintains consistency of the size of the text, size of the arrowheads, and so on. So we've got the dimensions layer set, we've got the dimension style set, and we've got the annotation scale set. Now I can place dimensions from the Home tab on the ribbon in the annotation panel. There's my dimensions there, like so. I can also, if I want to, go to the Annotate tab, and there's my dimensions there. So I'm going to place a couple of linear dimensions. So I'll click on linear, make sure your object snaps are on, and I'm going to zoom in tight now on these window frames because I want to dimension the actual window opening. So that's the orange corners, 1 and 2 there. And as I drag that up, you can see it's a 2'6" space that fills that particular window frame. So if I do another one now, do another linear dimension, and I'll go for the next window opening, which is just there, orange to orange, remember? And you can see that that is also 2'6". If I hover here, though, on that endpoint snap there, on the previous dimension, it lines them up nice and neatly. Now, bear in mind, I've also got angles and things in this particular drawing. So what I could do now is measure some angles as well. So I might put a different dimension in, such as an angular dimension. And what I might do there is use this line and drag that out and say that that's 90 degrees, for example, which is pretty obvious. It's a corner of a room and it should be at 90 degrees, but you can see what I mean there. Now, what I could do is specify the radius of that fireplace, so I could use a radius dimension as well. So I'll come in here and I'll specify that radius of the outer arc. I can take that out like that, or I can bring it out this way, like so, and I can place that radius wherever I want it to go. So I would probably do something like that. So it's a radius of 6'8", for example, there. So you can see how dimensions can be placed very quickly and very easily in your AutoCAD drawings. What you need is a dimension style, a dimension layer, and also don't forget as well that you need to make sure to check whether it's annotative or non-annotative. If it is annotative, you need to make sure that your annotation scale is set when you're working in the model space, like so. So as you can see, placing dimensions, not too difficult to place, just make sure you've got the right settings first. Once again, we're staying in our annotating_house.dwg file. And in the previous video, as you can see, we looked at placing a few dimensions on the drawing. Now, another part of annotating in your AutoCAD drawings is placing multi-leaders. Now, multi-leaders are normally an arrow or a spline that comes off of something, and you then have a descriptor on the end of it. It might be a bubble, it might be a piece of text, it might just be a tag that gives a number, say for a window type, for example, in this particular house. Now, the multi-leader command, again, can be found in a number of places. If I go to the Home tab on the ribbon, you'll find it in the Annotation panel, and there's multi-leaders there like so, where you can add a leader, remove a leader, align and collect, and also just place multi-leaders. If you want to change your multi-leader style, it's in the Annotation flyout, and there's your multi-leader style there. If I click on the down arrow there, you'll see that there are various multi-leader styles available. You've got an annotative one and a standard one. Select the standard one for this particular video. Now, what we're going to do is go to the Annotate tab on the ribbon, and you'll see that leaders have their whole panel to themselves. And as you can see, you can select the style there if you want to as well. There's our standard style. Go up to multi-leader here so that we can place a multi-leader object. And it'll ask you to specify a leader arrowhead location. I'm going to use the midpoint snap on that window. Click, and drag upwards and click again. And as you can see now, it's asking me to place the text on that particular multi-leader style. So I might place something like window in there, for example, and just click away from the text. And all of a sudden, that all looks a bit small and weird, doesn't it? Can you see? It's all very small and weird there. So I'm going to delete that one. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my multi-leader style to annotative, like so. And then just make sure here that my annotation scale is still at 1 to 50 like it was in the last video. Let's place a multi-leader now and see what happens. I'll use the midpoint snap there. And as I come out, can you see the arrowhead is bigger? And the landing on that leader there is actually longer as well. So if I click like that, can you see the text is bigger as well? So if I now type window and click away from that because it's multi-line text, it all looks the right size. Why is that? Because it's annotative. And what you would normally do with multi-leaders, like dimensions, is make them annotative so that when you jump into your layout here, can you see if I zoom in close, all of that is consistent. The window text is consistent with the dimension text. It all looks nice and neat and tidy. Now, obviously, you could go and create your own multi-leader styles there. And a good CAD practice habit here, just double-click on the wheel to zoom extents when you're in a layout tab so that people can see the whole layout just before you go back into the model tab. So that's placing a multi-leader like so. Let's have a look now at editing a multi-leader. I'm going to change the style. I'm going to click on this little arrow here, and you can see that we've got annotative as the current style. I'm going to click on new, and we're going to call this style just training for now, like that. And we're going to start with annotative, and we're going to make sure that the annotative box is ticked, and I'm going to click on continue. Now, I'm not going to change any of the settings because this all works. The only thing I'm going to change is in the content tab, multi-leader type, I'm going to change it to a block. Now, there are some default blocks available in AutoCAD already, and the source block I'm going to use is circle. And can you see there it says tag and what looks like number? And it is a tag number. It's basically a tag with a bubble on the end of the leader line. So I'm going to OK that now, and that's now my training style. So I'll select it, set it as the current style, and click on close. I'll now go back to multi-leader. I'll pick a different window. Let's say this one, the midpoint there. And I'll drag it up, and I can line in a minute, don't worry. So I'll specify the leader landing location, and this time it's asking me for a tag number. So I'm going to say it's window type A, for example. I'll click on OK, and it puts an A in the bubble like that for me. So I can use that little block setting to create little bubbles like that for window types. One thing I can do is I can now, for example, align my multi-leader. So I'm going to select this window multi-leader and this A bubble multi-leader and enter to confirm. Select the multi-leader to align to. I'll go for the window one. And as I drag, I can line that up and click there. All done. So as you can see, that's how you can add and obviously modify multi-leaders in your AutoCAD drawings. We're staying in our annotating underscore house.dwg file. What we're going to look at now is creating and assigning annotative styles. Now, annotative scaling can be used for things like dimension styles, text styles, multi-leader styles, as you've seen in previous videos. So what we're going to look at is creating an annotative dimension style, but it's going to have different features to the dimension style we used previously. So I'm going to go into the Annotate tab on the ribbon, and I'm going to go to the Dimensions panel here and click on this little arrow here, and it will take me into the Dimension Style Manager. If I close that, though, and go to the Home tab, you'll also notice on the Annotation flyout here that I can also go to Dimension Style there as well. Doesn't matter which one you use. Select Annotative as the style in the list, and then click on New. And you'll notice it's prompting you for a new style name, copy of annotative. We're going to call it training, like so. Make sure you start with annotative, the style. Okay, make sure that's the one that you're using. Make sure that you tick the annotative box, and we're going to use it for all dimensions, not just linear or angular. We want all dimensions. Click on continue. And what it'll do now is it'll take you into the new dimension style training. Now, we're not going to change much. Go to the lines tab, because we've adopted all the settings of the annotative style here. So as you can see, the preview looks pretty good. We just need to tweak a few things. dimension lines and things, I'm going to set all of this to by layer. And you'll notice as you do this with the extension lines as well, everything starts to change color because it's adopting the properties of the dimensions layer, the current drafting layer. Now, all of the actual sizes of the dimensions I'm not going to worry about. I'm going to leave all these values as they are. Symbols and arrows, I'm going to change that to something different. Instead of using closed-filled arrowheads, I'm going to use a box-filled dimension like that, just to make it look a bit different. And then the text as well, make sure the text color also by layer. And can you see now everything's consistent? I'm going to change the text alignment so it's all aligned with the dimension line, like that. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave all of that like that. Now we know it's an annotative style already because we selected the annotative style from the list. But if you just want to check, there's the annotative box. Just make sure it's ticked in the Fit tab. Click on OK. And then what we want to do is select training from the list, set it as the current style, and close. So that is now our current dimension style. I'm just going to pan across a little bit here so that I've got something to actually physically dimension. I'm going to dimension some bits here near the double doors. And then what I'm going to do now is just place a linear dimension using that new dimension style. So I'll go to the annotation flyout here on the home tab on the ribbon. Make sure that my dimension style is training, like so. There it is there. And then what I'm also going to do is just click here on the annotation scale and make sure that that is still 1 to 50 as per previous videos. So now what I'm going to do is go to the annotation panel again, click on the flyout and select linear. And I'm just going to dimension this double door. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit and actually get the corners of the openings like that. So there we go there. And as I come out and click there, you can see that is 60.0761 inches because it's a decimal setup. Now what I can do there, if I want to modify this particular annotative scaling in the style of the dimension style, I can jump back into my dimension style manager. So I go in here like so. Now, if I jump back into training there, select it, click on modify, and I'm going to go to primary units like so and change the format to architectural. Notice it now goes to feet and inches rather than decimal. I click on OK, I click on close, and that now updates. It's now 5 feet and 1/16 of an inch. But you can see the style has remained the same. The only thing I've changed there is the actual readout of the actual dimension value. So that's how you can create an annotative style for dimensions and also modify that style as well, and also assign it in your model tab while you're dimensioning in your drawing. We're staying in our annotating_house.dwg file. And what we're going to look at now is actually annotating using a table and a table style in our AutoCAD drawings. So you'll notice that I've left the drawing at the same state as it was at the end of the last video. So we're in the model tab right now. What I'd like you to do is double click on the wheel and zoom extents so that you can see all of the house in the plan in the model tab. Then jump into your home tab on the ribbon and just make sure that you select the text layer. We're going to place our tables on the text layer. Now you might create a new layer and call it tables, for example. It's entirely up to you. Once you've done that, I'd like you to jump into the desized layout tab like so. And we're going to place our table just here, bottom right, inside our layout tab. Now you can do this via the annotation panel on the home tab on the ribbon. I'll click on the flyout there and you can see that there is a table style available. So I click there and we've got the standard table style. That's what we're going to use for our table in this particular case. It's perfectly adequate for our needs. There it is there, a little preview of it. If I wanted to create a new table style, I click on new and then I would click on continue and go through the dialog boxes similar to the dimension style that we created in the previous video. I'm just going to cancel that for now though. And I'm also going to close the table style dialog box. So in your annotation flyout here on the home tab on the ribbon, just make sure that you're using the standard table style. It should be the only one there. Now, if you want to place your table, the table command is there on the annotation panel, if you want to do it there, or you can do it from the annotate tab over here on the tables panel here. It's got its own tables panel. Now, you'll notice I have to expand the tables panel out. That's purely due to the resolution of my screen as I record these videos. I'm sure you've got a lot more screen real estate than I have. So we click on the table command and it brings up the insert table dialog box. So there's our table style, standard. We're going to start from an empty table and we're going to show the preview. I like to have the preview so I can see what I'm doing. We're going to specify an insertion point and we're going to go for 4 columns, which was already there. Column width, if it's not that already, set it to 5 inches for now. That'll do. 3 data rows. So there's our data rows there in the preview with a row height of 1 line each. Now you'll notice in the settings from the table style, we've also got a title and a header row there as well. And you'll see why those kick in a minute. They're slightly different sizes. And what we can do is we can adapt the table style to highlight things and change things if we want to in our title, header and data cells in the table itself. So make sure that your first row cell style is title, second row cell style is header, all other row cell styles data. So when I click on OK now, there's my table waiting to be dropped in. I'm just going to drop it in there bottom right like so. As soon as I do that, the text editor kicks in because all of the text is multi-line text in an AutoCAD table. So you can see the text editor contextual tab at the top of the screen there. Now I'm going to type door schedule in capitals. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a door schedule for all our doors in our drawing. So I click away from the table now and it inserts the table with the title in place saying door schedule. So I'm going to zoom in on the table now a bit so I can see what I'm doing. Double click in this header cell here. That's going to be my door type. And then I'm going to tab across. This is going to be length of door. And then I'll tab across width of door. And possibly even height, let's say, or glazed or anything. You can put anything in these headers. And then I tab again and door type A is there. And then using the arrow keys, door type B and door type C. Click away from the table again. And you can see I've inserted a table very quickly and very easily. I can start putting values into the length, width and height and so on. And I can then edit that and create a nice functional informative table in my AutoCAD drawing. Now it's good CAD practice obviously to double click on the wheel and zoom extents when you're in a layout tab so that everybody can see the whole of the layout like so. And as you can see our table sits there nicely in the layout waiting to be edited and used with the information we need to put in it. We're now in another new chapter of our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course, and we're going to look at layouts and printing, because obviously at the end of the day you want to be able to communicate your design intent by way of your AutoCAD designs. To do that you would put your designs into layout tabs and then print out those layout tabs to obviously communicate that design to a stakeholder in your AutoCAD project. Now, you can see that we've got a new drawing available for you. It looks remarkably similar to the drawing we used in the previous chapter. It is, but with a few little tweaks here and there, and you'll see those as we go through this particular chapter. The drawing itself is called layouts printing _house.dwg, and you can use that particular file and download it from the website to follow along with all of the videos in this particular chapter. So like in the previous chapter, we start with the drawing, and each video just save what you've done so far and then go on to the next video. So in this particular video, we're just going to look at using layouts to communicate our design intent and then create a new layout and set it up ready to create some new viewports. Now, what we've got is, in this particular drawing, our model tab showing our plan of our house. We've got a little bit of annotation going on here and there as per the previous chapter. Now, if we go into the layout tabs, you can see that we've got a desized sheet tab with an overall sort of general arrangement view with a nice little door schedule table there sitting in the layout as well. Now, the other layout tab that we have available uses the same title block, but it's actually just showing us the living room, and the view in the viewport is different. Now, here's the trick. You can create as many different layouts as you like and have as many different viewports in a layout as well. So if I go back to the D-size layout here and click on the edge of the viewport here, you can see that the viewport is at a scale of 1 to 50. I'll hit escape just to deselect it. If I go to the living room layout here, you can see there's a viewport there, click on it, and that's at a scale of 1 to 20. So I'm going to hit escape to lose that particular viewport as well. I don't want to erase it obviously, but I just want to lose it from the selection set so that I don't click on it, move it, adjust it, or whatever. Now, let's create another new layout tab that we're going to use. So we've got the living room layout tab. Make sure that's the current layout tab, like so. Right click on it and go up to move or copy. And what we're going to do is we're going to move it to the end and create a copy by ticking the box and clicking on OK. So we've now got living room 2. So if I click on living room 2, it looks exactly the same. The viewport view is the same, the scale of the viewport is the same, and so on. Now, I don't want to worry too much about viewport scaling or anything right now, but I'm going to right click on living room 2 and I'm going to rename it. So we'll call that the entrance hall layout tab and press enter. Now, it's not showing the entrance hall right now. We're going to look at that in the next video. We're going to set up a nice viewport for the entrance hall and scale that viewport accordingly so that all the detail can be shown. We're staying in our layouts printing _house.dwg file. And as you can see, we're still in the entrance hall layout tab that we created in the previous video when we set up the new layout to use for the entrance hall. Now at the moment, the viewport is still showing the living room because we, remember, moved and copied the layout of the living room and created the new entrance hall layout tab. So we're going to double click inside the viewport, but make sure you are in the entrance hall layout tab. You don't want to mess up your living room layout tab. So I'm going to double click there, and that now makes that viewport active. And we're going to utilize that viewport to show the entrance hall. So you can zoom out a bit and then pan across a bit, and the entrance hall is just here. So I'm going to zoom in there and get a view of that inside that viewport. Now, because I've done a bit of zooming and panning, you'll notice that the scale down here is a non-standard viewport scale. So we'll just click there and go back to our 1:20. And you'll see that zooms out a little bit actually. So that's actually a viewport that's a bit too big for our view of the entrance hall. But I want to keep it at a 1:20 scale because I might be using an annotative scale of 1:20. So here's the trick. Double click outside the viewport to deactivate it. Click on the edge of the viewport, and just using the grips now, we can resize the viewport just by dragging like so. And I'll click here as well and drag across this way a little bit like that. And then what I might do is I might drag downwards a bit as well and just make sure that you've actually got an entrance hall now that looks like that. And then when I hit escape to deselect, I've still got a viewport there showing the entrance hall at 1:20. I can click on that viewport, right click, use move off the shortcut menu, pick a corner, pop it up here in the top left corner like so, and hit escape to deselect it just in case it is still selected. Now the good thing is that viewport, I know if I click on the edge of it, is at 1:20. It tells me on the status bar. Now that's good, and also in the later versions of AutoCAD 2018, I can also click here and change that viewport scale there if I want to as well. So that's quite a nice new feature in the 2018.1 subscription update. Now, what you've got there is a viewport, but if I hit escape just to deselect that viewport, make sure I'm on the viewports layer in the layers panel on the home tab on the ribbon, and then go to the layout tab on the ribbon, not the layout tab bottom left corner. I can now go into layout viewports here in the panel, click on the flyout and select rectangular like so. And what I might do now is place another viewport here like this. I'll line it in with the corners so it all lines in and it's roughly the same size. And now it's given me another viewport, but with a default view inside it where it's just zoomed to the extents. This might be a bathroom detail. So I'll double click inside the viewport, zoom in on the bathroom there like so, get that roughly central, and then perhaps set that at 1:20, see whether that fits. Perfect fit there. Just double click outside the viewport to deselect. And I've now got another viewport of 1:20 showing a different view, but the same scale, that 1:20 scale. Now, they don't have to be the same scales. You can change the scales of your viewports. You can move them around. You can place them in your layout tab wherever you want to. And the benefit you've got is you're communicating your design intent with all these different views of your AutoCAD design. Once again, we're staying in our layouts printing _house.dwg file. And what we're going to look at now is preparing our drawing to be printed, plotted, perhaps sent to an electronic file format such as DWF or PDF, for example. And basically, when you're setting up your printing options, the quickest way to do it is to use the Page Setup Manager. Now, we've got 3 different layout tabs. You don't normally plot from the Model tab. So the Model tab, if I click on it, is where you do all your design and draw everything full size. You then set up your layouts like so, and they are all set up with a title block and scaled viewports to communicate the information from the model space, the model tab. So we've got our D-size layout tab, we've got our living room layout tab, and we've got our entrance hall layout tab, like so. Now I'm going to go to the D-sized layout tab and make that current. I'm then going to right click here, and I'm going to go to Page Setup Manager on the shortcut menu that pops up after I've right clicked on the D-size tab. Now you'll notice in the Page Setup Manager that the D-size layout tab is already using the D-sized DWF page setup. Now select the page setup, D-size DWF, and just click on modify so that you can see what a page setup does. And as you can see, it's all set up as if you're going to plot the drawing. But the benefit is it remembers these settings. So you're saving all of these settings, this D-size DWF page setup, so that you can apply it to any layout you want to. So I'm not going to change any of the settings here, but if I click on preview, it'll give me a little preview of my title block, and you can see the viewports layer there is set not to plot because it's not showing in this particular preview. I'll right click there and exit, and it takes me back into the page setup dialog box. I'll OK that, and it'll prompt me now saying that the page setup I just edited, which I didn't. I went in and obviously looked at it, but it thinks I've edited it. So I'm going to say yes just to update everything. Now I need to apply that particular page setup to my entrance hall and living room tabs. So what I can do now is close the dialog box here, go to my living room tab and make it current, right click on it, Page Setup Manager. I then highlight D-sized DWF there, and you can see the current layout is living room. If I double click on D-sized DWF, it adopts that D-sized DWF as the page setup. So if I plot it, it will plot using the settings of that particular page setup. I'll close the dialog again, go to the entrance hall layout tab, make that current, right click and go to Page Setup Manager. Again, D-sized DWF there, select it, double click on it, and it applies that now to the entrance hall as well. So I click on close. Now if I want to plot these, I can just right click now, go to plot. It tells me the page setup at the top of the dialog box that I'm using. I can now preview that, and you can see that it's all ready to plot. There's my two viewports, and there's my title block and so on. I'll right click and exit that. Takes me back to the plot dialog box, so I'll just click on cancel. So as you can see, when you're preparing your drawings to print them or plot them, ideally you want to be using your Page Setup Manager. Now I'm not going to plot anything for you because there's nothing more boring than watching AutoCAD plotting drawings. The idea obviously is to make sure that that page setup is set up effectively so that you can then apply that to other layout tabs in your AutoCAD drawings when you're plotting and printing to communicate your design intent. We're now at the end of our AutoCAD Certified Professional Preparation course. And I do hope you've enjoyed the course, and I do hope you've enjoyed learning all of the workflows and processes and the topics that may get covered in your AutoCAD Certified Professional exam. It now leaves it up to me purely to wish you luck for your exam, and I do hope that you pass. However, this particular course is no guarantee of passing. You need to go through the exercises, through the videos, and obviously prepare yourself and basically get the knowledge inside your head ready to take that exam and go into it with a view to obviously passing. Now, obviously go ahead and go and take that exam. I wish you luck and I wish you all the best, and I hope you do pass first time. Again, thank you for taking the course, and I really do hope you enjoyed it.